The esports model for teams is broken. And this is true across publishers. You can take a look at the biggest games in the world, not just League of Legends, but Counter-Strike, Dota, and you can say, wow, this isn't working for teams. The publisher relationship is, I would say, difficult for teams these days. And we all know the fundamental reasons. Gen G CEO Arnold is with us here on the Four Horsemen to talk about how things might be improved and where things are really failing for teams right now. And the team model is so broken, guys, that it's very hard to be a pure esports team in the way we would consider a pure traditional sports team, as in an organization that is focused on competitive excellence and making money from the competitive scene. You see lots of other ways of making money, such as, I don't know, ninjas in pajamas starting crypto farms. You see influencer networks attached to teams, although even that hasn't worked too well, as we'll get into. But when we talk about the incentives for teams versus the game developers and publishers, there is a lack of alignment there at a fundamental level, in that many publishers are most interested in promoting microtransactions within their games, which for the most part makes the publishers money. And why should they share that? And also, how much money does this marketing exercise that is esports even make? Nobody knows, because, well, the developers and publishers know, but they're not willing to share that information. And why would they create things for microtransactions that they split with esports when they can just take it all themselves, right? It's true also that many of these publishers are footing the bill for esports production, although not true in, say, Dota or Counter-Strike or Valve titles. So, Arnold, where do you see the lack of alignment between esports teams and the publishers at a fundamental level? Because it feels like that's the single biggest issue for teams currently.
Yeah, I think I want to break down what you said into a couple of things. One, when you say esports model is broken, I think it's important to think about, like, what is the esports model and what are we saying is broken?
Sure.
The first part there is, I look at our company and, we're doing pretty well. We're going to be growing despite a lot of difficulties that we've had. We're going to be growing quite a bit this year. We're going to be actually trying to make sure that all of our games, all of our titles that we're in is sustainable, and that they're break even, and that the company is going to be break even, right? Not generating a lot of profit, but break even and being able to be sustain itself, not just for the next year, but for the next 10 years, for the next 100 years, right? So I think a lot of teams are now able to do that. However, the previous model of expecting direct partnership with publishers and expecting that to be very, very valuable, really being able to focus on, hey, tell us the rules where if we build a great team and create a lot of passionate fans, then that's going to be valuable and sustainable. That model, I think, doesn't exist right now. And I would say that's a shame, right? For us, even, I would say about 40% of our business doesn't come from esports anymore. League is only responsible for 25-30% of our revenue. And a lot of it, I think, is because, and the part is less about the number, but more if I'm building an experience for fans, and if fans feel like something continues to get taken away, I don't feel great as a fan, right? And
what are you referring to? What are you referring to specifically? What's being taken away, or what could be taken away, theoretically?
I would say so for instance, I want to be very transparent here in that I've always believed that LCK was a global league, right? Even when we originally signed up, we were pitched the idea that this is the Premier League of esports, right? And different people have different views of if the Premier League is the Premier League and etc. But let's not go into that.
It's the idea. Right? It's the league that everyone watches around the world, though. It's the number one league. Yeah, that's all exactly. Right.
Yeah. And I think recently there was a move to have one of the games in Hong Kong, which I love the idea that LCK is going to be more global. But as just a fan, as a fan, but also somebody that talks to so many different Korean fans, so many talk to our fans, it feels like more is getting taken away, right? The player pool, the prize pool is taken away for players. Just less stakes now for the players, and it's just less exciting for them. And it's less about the fact that there's less dollars. It's more about it feels less exciting for the players. They don't know what to look forward to for the players. And when it comes to something like even an international match, I just wish it was executed differently. It just feels like it's another big event that's taken away. Whereas I still agree with the direction of, hey, how do we create a bigger, more global league out of Korea where so many eyeballs are? I just wish that there was more that we could offer for the fans in Korea at the same time where we're growing internationally, instead of this weird state of trade-offs and compromises that we keep doing that doesn't feel great, especially without like a clearer vision of where it's going.
All good. Here's the thing. You're doing a great job with the corporate speak and keeping everything all polite. So I'll just be me, because I don't work for Gen G or LCK or T1. So watch this. First of all, when you say 40% of your revenue doesn't come from esports, then what does it come from?
Well, we have quite a lot of other stuff. So, we have probably the largest gaming academy in the world.
Okay.
Sadly, the majority of our students, they're not interested in League anymore. Like a small single-digit
What is
percentage.
the biggest interest right now? What are they into?
So it kind of flips around depending on whatever game is hot. But Roblox, Minecraft, VALORANT.
Okay.
And
even
so
VALORANT, okay.
League is in single digits now.
Right. Okay.
Not students, but like percentage.
No, yeah.
And so when I look at that, and when I talk to our players, I'm always asking them, man, hey, who should we be looking at that's coming up right now?
Right.
Like 5 years down the line, who should we be? And a lot of times they're like, I don't know. It's not the same like it used to be when we came up.
No, by the way, that's a very valid point. Like, I know it's the same fear that like the LPL in China has. Like, they currently have really good players, but who are you going to have in a few years? Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is at the beginning when you said, like, our goal is to be sustainable in all games for this year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years. Like, first of all, rewind to the 100 years, but just go back to the 1 year and 5. It's one thing to have a goal to do that. And then you said that all teams, like most teams could do this. Like, first of all, there's no universe Gen G sustainable. And I would say overall in any of the games right now. Am I wrong?
Actually, look, we will be profitable by the end of the year.
In which game? Or is an overall organization, all games combined?
Unfortunately, we still haven't figured out how to make it quite work in League of Legends. But
yeah, sure. Probably the most expensive game to imagine, right?
Yeah, pretty much all of the other. But look, there's a lot of value in League and the branding and the fan base and a lot of the halo effect that it does provide. But I just wish it was easier for us to, let's say, monetize the game that we are in, which is League, to get more freedom out of it so that we can do the things that we want to do to grow. And each team has their own approach. And, I think obviously like for T1, they mentioned that they want to do more events, right? And I think that's great.
Sense.
And they have the fan base to do it, right? I guess Nip is out there mining crypto. So Bitcoin.
I mean, it's really interesting because, there are very few or increasingly few, what I would say, pure esports teams. And in a way, even though for you guys, if you have this, you have this giant gaming academy, and it could be said that your esports teams and your professional players are in fact a marketing tool for your primary business, which is actually a gaming academy, right? But even a gaming academy could be considered like like soccer-esque farm system in Europe, or like a baseball-esque farm system in America, that goes through a bunch of people. So it's also surfacing candidates for your professional teams, right? And it allows you to follow the gaming trends more closely, because you can get ahead of people. Like you're saying, oh, well, League of Legends isn't being played anymore, which anecdotally I can share, because I've told this story before, but when I was doing consulting in high school esports in North America, I was literally going to high schools with thousands of students, visiting their esports clubs, and seeing that a high school with 2,500 students couldn't put 5 players together of any rank to play League of Legends on a team. And it was all Roblox, Minecraft, Smash Brothers, Rocket League, not League, Valorant to a certain degree. It wasn't Counter-Strike, it wasn't the League of Legends, it wasn't big esports. But, we have all these different ancillary businesses. Like some teams have, like I said, done the influencer network thing or the apparel thing, 100 Thieves, and the 100 Thieves also got lucky in that they at one time, they had Valkyrie, who at one time was the most explosive growth YouTuber in the world. And even then they were struggling, right? Like you can't get luckier than that on the influencer side, really. But you have all these different ideas, but being a pure esports team, like you guys, probably Cloud9 is another one that's like actually a pure esports team. People might say Liquid, but Liquid also has a bunch of ancillary media business and agency businesses.
We
actually, that
own
people don't know about.
a data platform called your.gg as well. So it's kind of like the Blitz that TSM owned. So we've like really worked to diversify basically any kind of dependency of a publisher now. And I think all this business talk is really important, but like I also think about like from a fan perspective, right? Which is, so I don't know if you know, because you're out there quite a bit in Korea, but like, do you know how hard it is to get a Gen G ticket, like at Low Park? This thing sells out like instant. Look, obviously T1 sells out even faster, but like we have to basically choose which family members can go from our allotment, right?
So we need a bigger stadium with more tickets.
Yeah, and so if I frame the problem differently, if I say, if I'm a fan and I'm a hardcore fan, I've been a fan for 10 years, and now Spring Final just got taken away, prize pool just got taken away, and this LCK Cup thing feels like it's gotten taken away. But when you look at it from the corporate world, they're like, oh, well, we're gonna get more people and more viewership and more. But I'm like, why can't we solve the problem that there are certain games that more people want to go to, and they're even willing to pay a higher price to go? And why can't we figure that out for the games where people do want to go? Some games, I'm not going to name the teams or anything, but like they 500 seats is plenty, or 400 seats or whatever the number is. But the problem with that is like, that's a very like surface level criticism. The deeper criticism is we try to do it. Right? We try to have these homestand events, and we're still planning on trying to do one if we can this year. It costs $1 million to run a weekend because of the Riot like requirements on production and everything else. And like, I want to create the fan experience that gets fans excited and it feels like we're growing, because that's exciting for everyone. That's exciting for staff. That's exciting for us. That's exciting for our investors too. But if the starting point is $1 million for a weekend, right? Like, how's that gonna work? How do I create that fan experience? And there isn't a single sponsor out there that's willing to do it. Maybe there is, but they're probably restricted by Riot. Like, it's that's where I really struggle, and I feel like that's where my tension is that like, the more I understand, the more I want to solve it, but as one team, I don't have the ability to solve this issue.
Yeah, and on top of sponsors, like obviously you could get some sponsors for one of these homestand weekends, but in isolation,
get you to $1 million though.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like if you're selling tickets for $100 each, which would be pretty expensive for esports, you still have to sell 10,000 tickets to reach $1 million in revenue. It's that's a big arena. Yeah. So it's a big arena.
And also the experience has to be awesome, right? Like the starting point should be, how do we get the lowest? But if you dig a little deeper and you say, like, why would a publisher require such high standards? And you say, well, they have a bar that they want to hit, right? They set the bar so high, and it feels like they're slowly taking it away here and there in bits and pieces. I just wish that, there was a little bit more action when it comes to saying, this is not sustainable. We need to reset. This is the new vision, and this is how we're going to make these changes. And so fans can feel like we're going somewhere with a destination endpoint, rather than right now it's like, oh, that just happened. Oh, no, we're not having that anymore. And that just feels like it's great. And I think that's why like teams like us, especially teams like in the LCK, in LEC, They're now finding like alternate routes and alternate events and homestand events and other things, slowly. But I just feel like this slow approach with all these constraints, like really, really restrict what the potential of this ecosystem and league can be.
So let me ask a different question, Arnold, because let's lay this out for people. What do you perceive? Now, the different publishers are going to have different goals, but what do you perceive the publishers, when we talk about a lack of alignment with the teams, what do you think the publishers' goals are with esports? Like if you were to be a publisher and you were running esports from their end, what would you be trying to min-max for?
Yeah, I think ultimately I'll tell you not what I'm hearing from publishers. I'll tell you what I would do as a publisher.
Yes,
and what
exactly. That's what I'm asking.
and because this is for me is like I try to create a mental model of what are the moves that people are going to make and what's the action that I will make. And so that, instead of worrying about why they're doing something and like that they're wrong or they're right and that like it's the wrong thing to do, what's the most likely move that they will make and what move can I make? And I think there may be ups and downs, but I think where publishers, their number one priority is make money. And they make money from the game, they make money from skins, they make money from having kids play solo queue and buying skins. And anything that puts any kind of risk to that, they're going to reject. And anything that is, hey, a team can, make a better, more sustainable model and invest more into players and fans is a second priority if it, in their mind, hurts the value of the property and the value of that property in relation to fans playing the game, right? And so if a broadcast is 10% worse, but saves 40% in costs, right? Where you're now saying, okay, if an event's 600,000, you do two days in a weekend, you do back-to-backs, you get like a 100K sponsor, which is like kind of like the market rate for like a not full activation sponsor, right? Like, you're like, all right, I build a great experience for fans and I break even and we can build on that as a foundation, right? But from their mind, it's like, well, 10% risk to my gigantic top line for, what people are spending based on what they watch on esports. I don't want to risk that. Because if the production quality is even 10% worse, maybe less people will watch, maybe less people will, buy the skin that's being advertised, maybe less sponsors from their side, because these are league sponsors, not our sponsors, right? And so that misalignment in incentives is it's not a bug at this point, it's a feature. And I think we just have to recognize that that's going to be the way that all publishers, and it's not just Riot. From Riot's perspective, I think they spent too much money on esports. Now they're pulling it back. And directionally, I agree. If I'm the CFO of Riot, I probably do this. I probably do the same thing. My disagreement is more on speed. If you're going to do it,
I can already tell you one of those people who just keeps talking forever. So I'm just going to jump in when I want. So basically, I'll run down a few things there. So first of all, when you're trying to play the position of Riot and you're like, but what if it goes down 10% and then that affects her? Who gives a fuck? Like, which is it? Are you actually business partners with someone? Because you know what you want to do when you're business partners with someone? I want to succeed in business. I'm going to do business with you. You're going to succeed in business. Together, our overlap is going to succeed in business. Business partners isn't like, I want to succeed in business, so you have to take the hit and pay my costs, basically. Then also the idea, go on then, fucking hell, whatever, mate. Go on.
Wait, sorry. Let me just, I just want to interject because I think you're bringing up a good point. But play it out more logically and say that they're rational actors too. And maybe the end game that they desire is fewer esports teams.
Yeah, well, here's the problem that you've nailed it. You've nailed it. They're going to get fewer esports teams. But you know what? There's going to have loads of DN Supers because that costs fuck all. They're not going to have Gen G and T1. That's what they're not going to have, mate. And do you know what? You know those sponsors.
I love DN Supers.
That's going to go really far down when you don't have the biggest teams in the world. When that team goes, oh, wait, a new game came out. You just said it, Roblox or so. If something else gets an esport, eventually that might make more sense for me if I'm a massive org. So actually, Riot, you could say, is incentivized to get the big dogs like you because you're also the only teams that can put on the big Activision homestand. Do you know why I don't personally care if Riot go, but I don't think you just said there, Riot wants to spend less money on esports. Well, why the fuck should you spend more to build their esport up, mate. They want to spend less. You've just said they take away one of the finals. They're even going to take one from Korean fans and put it in Hong Kong. I don't know how that helps Gen G fans, by the way. How do you and your Korean sponsors make money from a Hong Kong fan or someone from China? Like, I have no idea how that would even translate. Great for Riot, you're right. Riot gets to go international viewership, appeal. Like, that all makes sense. Then I'll throw this out there. If it was actually easy to make events, logically, Riot would do the events. They'd do like 5 events a year. They'd do all these cool things. They could have all their own sponsors. They don't want to do it, mate, because it costs money. It makes perfect sense to me why the spring final doesn't exist anymore. They realise they don't have to run it. They can just run the summer final and the cup, and they can save money.
Well, I mean, there's details to this, right? So one, if I had to break down what you said, one, I think we actually have a ton of fans in Hong Kong, and we can sell merch, we can do activations, we can get sponsors. So I'm not worried about that.
Start a team there, mate.
But the problem is more, the problem is actually more the fact that, if we are doing an activation in Korea, or rather, if we're going to be doing more international expansion, we should have like a clear target that we can communicate to fans and saying, hey, last year in 2025, 50,000 people were able to enjoy a LCK match in person. This year, we're going to make that number 60K, and we're going to add an international event, right? To me, that's the message. Like, that should be what's happening, but I don't know what's going on. Are we going from 50K to 60K to 70K? Well, I know that, teams are now allowed to have some homestands, but not the amount.
I love the way to you, it's like you're in the American political system. You've got to get Congress to do like a slight change on a bit. Mate, they're dictators. They can just decide tomorrow you have all the homestands or none. They don't have to go gradually, mate. If they believe, here's why actually you do need to care why Riot does it and what their motivations are, because that is what is going to change whether they decide with all their leverage, because you're not exerting your leverage, mate. You're not getting with the other teams and forcing their hand. You're going, please, but if I do a really good job, look at all, I've done all these maths and everything. If I just minus 10% gets me 40%, and then I get to say, you're doing it to you. So since you don't exert your leverage, mate, Riot's exerting all their leverage as far as I can tell. They're getting you to run the event for $1 million, or you just don't get to run an event. By the way, how can that be a thing? Right, wait a minute. If you run an event and you run it for 900,000, bro, then I don't get as many viewers. Well, what if I just don't run the event? Don't you get no viewers? What is it? What is the maths there? Like, you're being so generous to them. I can see why they've got you over a barrel.
Well, I think, look, I think the direction they're going makes sense to me, right? Which is provide more freedoms to teams to be able to activate their fan base.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But the way and that they're doing it and the speed that they're doing it and the lack of urgency and the lack of communication, I think it's really important that we give Korean fans something when we're taking spring finals away. And we have
that's another thing. I don't get this. Why not just have both? Why not have like a Korean one and then have like, it doesn't even have to be that, mate. It could even be something like there's a special match between the splits and it's like the winner of the LPL versus the winner of the LCK, something like that. Got exhibition. I think why not have both?
Well, it's fundamentally a cost issue. I think publishers, by and large, and this isn't just Riot, by and large, publishers have decided that esports has to be profitable. It can't just be a marketing spend. Yeah. Right? It has to be directly attributable.
I mean, that's a huge change, by the way. That's a huge change, in the landscape of the scene.
We're still operating under a very bloated cost structure for an esports event. And I wonder, do fans really want the high super production, low park experience, or do they just want to be around 2,000 other fans watching the players they love, playing the game they love? Like, I just feel like we've decided that it has to be this extremely expensive, like Low Park is super nice, right? Like every fixture is like fine grained wood and like all this stuff, right? But I'm like, dude, you just want to watch the game. You want to be with your fans. And the more people there are, the more you can cheer. And not only that, this is also very selfish of me, but it's the easier it is to get tickets for the most popular, most hyped matches, the easier it is to bring your friends and make new fans, right? Do you know how hard it is only on homestand events do I see like family members? Because a lot of the average league fan is like 30 plus, Like it's not like
Makes
the
sense.
kids like we.
Well, Arnold, here's something funny, right? I have kids. My son is almost 6. I tried to bring him to a LOL final, and I could not bring him to a LOL final because they wouldn't allow people under 12 into the event.
With the
Like,
parent, even
how
the parents.
how the fuck do you make new fans? Imagine being told you can't bring your kid to a baseball game.
The best
Or a
one, I'll
soccer
give you the
game.
extreme one, is obviously the NHL hockey. Little kids go to that and you beat each other's head
Yes.
in. Like, but they'll play as if you can't watch a video game where Lulu polymorphs someone. Give me a break.
Yeah. And again,
I
this
couldn't
is where
bring
the
my
publisher
my
has their, like,
5-year-old son to a League of Legends final. That is crazy.
But again, I understand from the publisher's perspective because they're saying, I can't expose my game to this rating agency and that like sets I don't know, but I'm like, just common sense wise, it's like, I want our fans to be able to bring their kids. I want
Yes.
boyfriends to bring their girlfriends, girlfriends to bring their boyfriends. Like, why do I need to be basically buying tickets from a scalper to go watch Gen G play? Like, it doesn't. And I mean, we want to solve it too, and we can do the home set, but I'm like, okay, so I want to do this. Let's go figure this out. Let's go figure out the numbers. And do you know how many times our team has looked at the number? It's like $1 million, and we're trying to squeeze everything out of everything without sacrificing like fan experience, and without charging $1 million for a ticket. Like, it's and I think we can't change the cost of the production, right? And it costs a ton on their side too. Like, this isn't just, I'm not even understanding what their costs are, right? Because they got all those employees, they got staff at Riot side, and they support a lot when it comes to this, right? So I think a lot of it is, I wish there was that vision and that aggressive take of, okay, if we're going to remove LCK Spring, we need this many more events. And to do that, we're going to have lower production on these events to allow for more fans to come to watch these games.
Well,
Because
it also just
we don't
changes
have
the
spring final anymore. Let's make up with something and bring something back in, because ultimately that's why we're here, right? Like, we care about the sport.
Yeah, and I think that this is, we're going back to OG esports at this point in time, but in the early days of LCS, one of the things that they did was they used to have weekends where they would go to the major MLG events and run LCS out of MLG. Was the production quality worse than in the LCS studio environment? Yes. Was it still exciting? Yes, because there was a much bigger crowd, and it was also just a different vibe. And I don't think for me or for other fans it mattered that there was lower production value temporarily, because it was a good mix-up of environment. You know what I mean? And I think any lower production value was made up for the fact that the atmosphere was significantly better.
Yeah. No, I watched all the old school stuff, and it was fun. It was just, you never knew what, the other thing is, once we lower the production value, what you're going to find are that people will find a way to create better production with less dollars, right? Like, I'm a big believer that if you let teams innovate, they find innovative ways to have a better production. And if you just hold it as this is the line, then you don't even give us a chance to do it.
So is your idea, though, the expansion of these audiences brings in new fans, which then generates revenue? Like, what's the actual mechanism here? Because I think if you have a large arena, you're still not going to charge a lot for tickets. So you're not saying, oh, ticket sales are going to, improve, dramatically in terms of generating revenue. So what's the actual mechanism that helps the teams in this scenario?
So first off, I think ticket sales will increase for certain sections of, ticket. That's variable ticket pricing, right? So as that happens, I think if you can get to break even, so the number is break even, right? It's not making a huge profit. Once you get to break even, then it gets really exciting, because you say, hey, you go to a sponsor and it's not like a 1 weekend event. It's, I'm going to have 5 weekends where you will own that weekend, and we'll have a prolonged marketing campaign around those 5 weekends. That's a lot more valuable than like, yeah, we're gonna get like 2,000 people over a weekend, and they basically say I can just hire a sign spinner and get 2,000 people to look at my logo. It's the same thing, right? So the longer period of time allows for campaigns. Second, if you have one that's profitable, then you can have multiple, right? And you can start getting economies of scale. So you can start negotiating with contractors and saying, look, why don't we have this thing that's breaking even now? Can you give us a 10% discount if we do 5 with you, right? Then you start eking out margins. Then you start improving the experience. Then you create more seats. So it becomes like a growth on itself, right? But if it's starting from, you have to clear this impossibly high bar for all but a handful of teams, then you're not allowed. Like, I bet some of these teams with smaller fan bases, including us, like, we have a lot of ideas we want to try, but we end up spending all of our capital onto just the production costs, which doesn't even help the fan experience on site, right? There's all food, there's merch, there's all these things that we want to invest more on that actually make money, right? And that improve the experience, but we end up spending everything just on production.
Are the production demands identical to what it is at LoL Park?
I would say it's, to be fair to them, I'm sure it's more strenuous given that they have to move everything to an offsite venue, right? So I'm sure it's very strenuous on their side too. So ultimately, the trade-off that I think needs to happen, and this isn't a positive one for most fans, is that maybe production value decreases, but the in-person experience increases. And creating kind of a trade-off there, I think, is going to be an important decision that the league has to make.
So I'm still puzzled why you are just like hypnotized by the idea of production value. Like, why to you is like 5 or 10% production? Like, oh my God, the bands are leaving, they're running, 10% worse. Who would even notice 5%, 10% drop in production value? Still, you're watching the match, mate. Like, what are we talking about here? What is it? Is the K-pop dancer not going to get the same close-up on the face? What are we, I don't even understand the mechanism, mate. What are we talking about? It just sounds to me like what Riot said to you is, here's the standards you must meet. And so that's why you keep circling around the idea, because you just won't say they're wrong, that like what they're doing is fine. They must have a good reason for it. And you're just figuring out a million different reasons that are all seemingly spurious as far as I can tell. Like, what's the mechanism as to, like, why just doing an event for a slightly less money make production go? I don't even know how would you even measure such a thing? What, you're at the HUD as you're watching, production meter is going down, it's at 90% now. Captain, it's critical. If it gets to 85, all the fans play Roblox. Oh God, no. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, mate.
The way I think about it is, for a lot
those Korean journalists are different, aren't they, mate? They're cut from a different cloth. I'll tell you what. Keep up.
The one thing is, I think when you set an expectation and you don't communicate that expectation is now wrong, and that it has to change, and set a vision for why this is changing, things don't change, right? The costs stay the same costs, right? Sure. And to me, this was like the biggest miss of even, First Stand, or rather LCK Cup happening in Hong Kong, is like, this is I think it's a great opportunity for us to become more global, for the league to become more global. But as a fan, especially the whole past few years has been, LCK has been growing, viewership has been growing, fan demand for tickets have been growing, especially for the top teams. And so for a fan experience, it's actually been getting harder and harder every year to get a ticket. And then LCK Spring is gone. And then now this LCK Cup thing, which we, a lot of us are still figuring out how this thing works, that's gone too. Like, that doesn't feel great. And it's like, what is the communication that we can have? And how is a team supposed to communicate to their fans about what it is, right? And, and that's the part that I struggle with.
I do want to talk about beyond the ticket sales, because like ticket sales are obviously a huge part of any traditional sport, but the bulk of traditional sports money is made up from media rights deals. Like, for example, the NFL has $100 billion decade-long media rights deal, and the mechanism of paying players and remaining profitable is that around 48% of the NFL's revenue is the salary cap. of the teams and goes to the players. And this is negotiated between the players union and the NFL. And then obviously the teams are incentivized to grow from that point because they can actually, generate more ticket sales, which they would take the majority of that money from, right? Over 52% approximately, right? So my question for you, Arnold, is look, esports rights are not coming back. We dabbled there. You were part of the dabbling in Overwatch League with the Twitch deal, with the Disney Plus deal. League of Legends tried to have the $300 million BAMTech deal that never went anywhere. I think we can safely say there isn't the mega media rights deal. That isn't going to be the primary driver of revenue. And the issue with that is the misalignment between the publishers and the teams. The NFL is a team-owned league. Their job is to make money based on the product of competition. Whereas now, because of mostly, honestly, Riot's actions, because we did have pay-per-view or subscription models prior to League of Legends going free, including, by the way, in Champions with OGN, where it was subscribe on Twitch for HD and for VODs. That model isn't coming back because what Riot said is this marketing exercise of esports is so successful based on the metrics that we have internally for selling skins and microtransactions that it is more efficient and more profitable for us to make this free everywhere as an advertisement for our game. And that model, we can't roll that back. We cannot, at least in League, we can't roll that back. Outside of some insane idea, like all the publishers collaboratively getting together and setting up their own streaming platform, right? That it is a subscription model. But that would require everybody to get along, which is never, ever, 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 ever going to happen. Because you also have misalignment between the publishers that are hands-on like Riot, the publishers that are hands-off like Valve, which means you have to get the tournament operators like ESL and Blast and these other entities involved. They all have to be partners. You have to work out that business deal, who gets what cut of the revenue from a subscription model if you were to create your own live esports platform. So maybe there's a hope, I would say, that Apple TV takes something, but anything that's going to lower the overall number of viewers by gating it is going to be anathema to certain publishers, right? Because again, they've made it free and walking that back is extremely difficult.
So for a publisher, right, the trade-offs are different, right? Because the less eyeballs they get, the less advertising they get for the game.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? So a publisher's making a very
media rights requires gating. It requires gating by its nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you an interesting angle you haven't maybe considered. Do you know why I think for Riot, it would actually be more valuable for them to contribute more to your homestand? Because if the logic is production value is a big part of viewership online, do you know what adds to production value? I come from Counter-Strike, mate. If you've ever watched Counter-Strike, you'll know this. Do you know how amazing it is in Counter-Strike when you have an event only in a small studio and then you have one in a big arena and you have the crowd on every kill? It's going crazy, and the intro and the walk-in and the hype. That makes people watching online more excited. That makes them more engaged with the product. So actually, that would help Riot themselves. If the logic is the esport being exciting and having more eyeballs sells more skins, that would help their own internal metrics. As far as I can tell, they should come meet you a little bit more halfway, mate. Wouldn't everyone benefit?
I think everyone would benefit, but it's a big risk, right? Let's say I'll just use our team because it's I don't want to speak for other teams, but let's say Gen G decides to host a homestand event. We rent a place that isn't the production just isn't there. But let's say the in-person experience is awesome. There's food, there's beer for the people that are of age. There's it's just a great gaming experience. There's a little area where you're gonna have internal tournaments and teams and schools from all over come and play, and it's actually really exciting. And that's where the money's getting spent. Meanwhile, the production kind of sucks. There's a tech pause, and online, the person that approved that decision is just going to get all the hate. And from global, they get the message saying why did you do this? Because they're not there. They're not at the event playing, with the kids and they're not, because it's a misaligned incentive. And so I think what's happening ultimately is that I think we talk a lot about numbers just because, where I'm the business guy, that is what I am. But fundamentally, the bigger worry I have is that our players and our fans are feeling it. Like there's just less every year, right? And there's this often thing that they tell executives about in like coaching is like you always want to be looking out at kind of like that you're going through death by 1,000 paper cuts. And like oftentimes it's like a small thing where employees notice, oh, there's no smoothie in the fridge anymore. By the way, maybe there shouldn't have been smoothies in the first place, but that's a different discussion. And like that becomes a trigger point for them to say, like, I'm done investing my time into a sport that won't invest back, right? And like, if that cycle starts, and we're getting close to it, versus if we said this is a hard reset, production value.
It's a psychological doom loop, basically, is what you're saying.
I'm worried. I mean, that's the reason why I'm on these shows and talking about it is like, look, we're a small company. We're trying our best. And I don't want our best to mean that, while we're doubling our investment in other esports titles and we're just maintaining in League, we're just saying like, let's just see if we can do a little better. Let's just see if we can get better sponsors. Like, let's just see, and that's to me, once I decide that, then I'm like, wait a minute. This is really scary. And so I started talking to players. I started talking to fans. And fans are like, well, I feel like there's less now. I feel like even if you go in the game, there's no more Twitch Prime credits and these other things. They're like, man, I'm getting less. And like the original sin is maybe they shouldn't have given away so much Twitch Prime.
Sure.
But still, right? Like,
I mean, those like Amazon Prime gaming deals for League of Legends where you could pick up just a ton of stuff for free were really generous, I think.
Maybe too generous, but still, it's just like there's no new, right? And even for our players, like I talk to our players and I'm like, hey, what's gonna happen? 5 years from now after you retire, like what do you think is gonna happen? Like, he's like, I don't know. I just don't see it. And like, cause he's like, well, they're basically telling me my game that I play, that I really work hard for, the championship that I'm trying to get is now worth 0 prize pool. It's worth 0. And it's not about how big that number is or small that number is. It's more like, you just told me it's 0. You just took it away. But is there some other thing I'm getting? Am I getting some placement in the game? Am I getting a little icon if I win? Like, what is the trade-off that I'm getting? And it's like, well, no.
Also, by the way, if people don't know, people always used to tell me in the beginning of League of Legends, when they had the stipend model, that's why League doesn't need big prize purses, because every player gets paid a salary and that we're spreading the league. And then they always used to tell me, Monty, look at franchise tournaments. You think the NFL and the NBA, do you know it's the other way around now? And actually, League sports teams are actually, like, the football is massively about like winning the Champions League stuff, mate, and qualifying to Europe. That is a massive part of winning. You get prize money for winning like the NBA and the NFL and stuff, mate. Like, actually, the joke is they brought the esports ethos in. I'll give you an edgy take. Here's where also, in my opinion, teams should exercise their leverage more. If I was the teams that make up the top end of the LCK and the LPL, I would literally be in a room with Riot going, oh, this thing where Worlds is in the USA? Not on my fucking watch, mate. Our teams are the best teams in the world. We have the players that carry the viewership. We have the viewership. Why would you ever hold that tournament in a continent that isn't suited to us and our fans can't attend the event en masse? Like, I would say literally, if you want to be business partners with me, you have to at least acknowledge that we're not all equal partners. Certain people bring different value propositions. And at the moment, the LCS, I'm sorry, you might be from America, but we're doing business in Korea, mate. It doesn't help me when you have the event in America. Again, I'm sure you're going to go, we have American fans starting. Yeah, okay, let's see how much you can make from them, mate. I would focus on your Korean fans. So I feel like that's one of these things that everyone's going to laugh at now, but I think it's a totally valid point. Like, why is it going to be in the USA? Can anyone tell me a reason why League of Legends should have Worlds in the USA?
Not only that, Thorin, but it's also going to be mostly in Allen, Texas, and we're talking about tickets.
Not even right? LA, where there's Korean people. What the fuck are we doing?
Well, it's like, but the Allen, Texas, it may be a good venue, but the problem is that, and it is a good venue, by the way, as somebody who's worked there. The problem is that the last time it was in America in 2022, we were talking about this is going to be in stadiums, semis are in stadiums, and this is a much smaller venue. So going back to the difficulty for getting tickets thing, having every aspect of Worlds in one place up until the finals in a smaller venue than we've had for quarters and semis in many instances previously is another.
Do you mean that if you're Riot
on track for the rest of the conversation,
you want to have the same viewership, but you want to cut your costs, you don't hold it in New York or LA. You go to Allen, I don't even know where Allen, Texas is. It's not Houston. It's not fucking Dallas. I've never heard of Allen, Texas. So we're going to Allen, Texas, so we can put our costs down.
It's really nice.
And then have the same event. Don't give a fuck, mate. I'm sure some random place in Korea is great, but it's going to be in Seoul, innit? I bet they don't let you have your home stand in the fucking middle of nowhere, do they? Even though you could get the costs right down and have all that production value, they make you have it in Seoul, don't they? So it's weird how when it's you have to have it in the most expensive place. When it's Riot's event, they just get to put it in Allen. That sounds like a guy. It sounds like it's Allen's house in Texas. It's a barbecue at the back. What are we doing?
I haven't been to Allen, Texas, but I've looked at it. It looked pretty nice.
You could have a homestand there, mate. You probably got loads of fans, haven't you?
You know, and
by the way,
I love New York, and like there's that David. Where's that guy? David, I can't say his last name, but he's a big New Yorker, so I know he'll be there.
Great. Anyway.
By the way, here's an obvious thing to me. This is all sides. The idea that you're even this focused on running an event in their league, where, I mean, the obvious thing I'd say as well, mate, is why are they just going, oh, cool, we only have 500 spots per league game. Lol, I'm not even going to open it up and make it more, even though, again, suppose it helps you. What I don't get is, to me, that's a side issue. That's misdirection. You're not an events company. The most obvious thing that you should be saying to Riot Games is this. You have an unlimited spigot of money generator called the fucking game. It's free to make shit inside of it. In fact, you know what? I'll make the skin for you. I'll make the cosmetic for you. Just let me sell it. Give me a marketplace. I'll even go one further. I don't even think you should just have skins. I think if you're Gen G, if you're T1, if you're the biggest teams in the world, you should have a sub-site when I log into the client in Korea where I pick to be a fan of T1 or Gen G, and I go to a sub-site and it has like skins that I can buy. It has here's the latest things Chovy and Keen played. Here's our fucking everything. I would have everything built in there. And this is again something where I'm not even saying Riot has to spend $2 million doing it. We'll do it. We'll develop it so we can help make the money. You take your cut, make it a marketplace, you know.
So I think 2 points there that I think are really important. One, it's still crazy to me that there are more skins for more tournaments, not even talking about teams, right? Like, let's not even talk about team skins because I think that's a whole nother topic, but there are more skins for more tournaments available in Valorant than in League, right?
Of course.
And, you know, I think and that's why, like, honestly, I'm really excited about the refresh that Riot's going to do for 2027, because I'm like, until the game changes where more players are coming in, we're just going to keep getting cut until there's no teams left, cut until there's no fans left. And, you know, even for us, like for me, the warning flag or the canary was like, man, we have 13 esports teams and I'm not thinking about League as much as I should or want to, because it's just not, because I have, you know, if I'm looking at my split of revenue and it's as a percentage, League is just going down and down and down. And so I'm like, well, but viewership's going up. Something's broken in this ecosystem where viewership is actually going up, especially for teams in LCK. Why can't we figure out, working in partnership with Riot, how to create more skins for even just more tournaments, right? Why can't LCK Cup have one? Why can't First Stand have one? And make those gigantic marketing moments so that when we do have an event in the future, they could be funded, right? With the skin revenue. I think that's where things will eventually go. And, you know, I mean, I kind of view it as like, well, I think Valorant and the team at Valorant are taking those steps and taking them very quickly. And I think other publishers are doing similar. And I've been looking at different models from other publishers as well. I guess 12 different other publishers. And so I believe that League will get there too. I just don't think the speed that they're executing on is one that instills a lot of confidence for teams to invest more.
I want to get away from League for a second because I think, Arnold, what's interesting about Gen G is that you guys have taken big swings in other models and in other titles. And, you know, maybe I'm the harbinger of doom, but I've been part of both of those things, which were Overwatch League and Flashpoint. And Overwatch League was obviously a new game introducing, basically they forced Riot into the franchise model. This was supposed to be a publisher-led endeavor that launched with great fanfare, with media rights deals. It was supposed to be the actual real sports league under a sports model, geolocated, because you owned the Seoul Dynasty, right? And then that obviously collapsed.
They had a good game in one of these leagues. I wasn't following the Overwatch thing. I only saw the CS bit, so it's all good.
And then the other one obviously was Flashpoint, which both Thorin and I were a part of, which was the attempt to create in Counter-Strike, because Valve at the time was allowing more of a franchise structure, a team mode league. And this was very different because in Counter-Strike, previously and currently, the tournament operators are the ones who, own
Some would
the
say you
actual
should
product
probably
of the
have put a
league.
bit of your weight behind the one where you got to own the league, so you didn't have to go to Riot. You went to yourself and put the costs on. Some would say that would have been a great allocation of your funds. Instead, you poured it all into your League of Legends team, and now Riot has you over a barrel. What you know what? Hindsight's a great thing in it. So hindsight's
Well,
a great thing.
I think in Counter-Strike, the problem is still they weren't getting cuts of the actual in-game monetization, right? So it's, the core and media rights sales were
Are they
still
getting
an
cuts
issue.
of it now, like Monty? Am I missing something? I must have missed that news. Where was it? Oh, yeah. Well, here's the other. Do you know the other reason why Arnold doesn't want to talk about skin sales? Because the joke is, if I had the T1 guy here, I'd go, mate, why are you letting them make you share the fucking skins? You won the skin. It should all be for you. So right now, he even profits from Faker winning Worlds in a slight manner because they share it all, don't they? Which I think is mental in itself, mate. Again, I don't know what we're doing here. So if T1 and Gen G spend all the money on Chovy and Faker, DN Supers just gets money if they win Worlds. Like, what even is that? What even is that? What I don't get is the model seems like it's literally tuned that the person who benefits the most is the most cynical min-maxer who's like 5th or 6th in the league. And if they have a team that does a little bit better in the game, they spend very little costs. And as a result, they can actually potentially break even. But if you guys race and you and Chovy and Faker get bidding wars and everyone's paying 5-6 million, it's almost impossible to make money back because you're bidding against each other, unfortunately.
Well, let's dig a little deeper into that, right? So if you, so yes, the world's winner gets a skin, and their region gets a small percentage. Obviously, the majority goes to the players and the team that won, as it should. And there are skins now that are, I think they've done a great job in now aligning skins and launches of skins with major tournaments like Worlds and MSI. Like anytime your launcher changes and you get all this stuff that you can like go and you can see, and part of that revenue is now shared. The problem is that's it. It's MSI. Maybe they have something for First Night. I don't know. MSI, Worlds, and those are the two esports aligned skins that drop, right? And so if you only have those two, you're gonna have to share them because you don't have anything else to share for the entire year of tournaments that are happening around the world, right? And so, and you can't be like, okay, an emote is the answer. Like it's like a 0.5% of their revenue. I don't know. It's like a nothing. Of
course.
Right? Yeah, they don't. Those emotes don't make any money, guys. By the way.
So it has to be, that there's a fundamental rethink of we should have a skin for every major tournament and every major championship that happens. Until we get there, not going to happen, right? And so I understand the illogicalness of it all, and and I think the teams that get more viewership should get paid more, right? And the teams that don't should get paid less. But at the same time, if we want to create, like, I think it's wrong to look at, let's say, the SFR in Korea and say like, oh, these are the top teams, these are the bottom teams, and the top teams that are paying over the cap, or rather the SFR, should be, should have to pay more to the teams that are underneath the SFR level, right? But for me, it's like, what are we trying to achieve with this? And I wish there was a bit better vision there. Is it more competitive parity? Is that what we're going for? Where if that's true, then that means that we should be lowering the SFR top level, but also raising the floor at the bottom level. And then I can talk to our players and be like, hey man, I know this sucks that this SFR level is down, but this ensures that the average salary or the median salary is going up, even if the average salary is less. The lowest salary is now going up. So all these kids who you're telling them you're not sure where league is going, but their like minimum salary is now higher because of this, right? Like there's a argument and a trade-off that we're making, but when it's just, oh, we're just gonna sit on it, right? And it's just, that's where I struggle. And I again, like, it's great strides that LCK has made. Viewership is going up. They have the SFR for sustainability, but I feel like these iterations are happening once a year instead of there should be 12 iterations 12 times a year. And that pace, I think, is maybe too risky for them to do. And it's frustrating. And it's frustrating for me. I know it's frustrating for our fans, right? I saw the backlash of Korean fans. And it sucks because it should be a moment where like Chinese fans, Korean fans, they should all be like excited that there's like more things happening, right? Especially when viewership's going up.
Esports teams are looking to cut costs, and if you're smart, so should you in your personal budget. I know one of the smartest decisions that I made financially last year was switching over to Mint Mobile. I still need an American number, even though I live abroad. And so Mint Mobile has allowed me, especially because I travel back to the States frequently, to have the same high quality service that I had before, because all Mint Mobile plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and it's all delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. But I've been able to drastically reduce my phone bill. The way Mint Mobile works is that you go ahead and pay upfront 3, 6, or 12 months of service, including unlimited service. You bring your own phone over to the network and you save massive amounts of money, particularly because the Mint Mobile end of the year sale is still going on, which means you can save up to 50% off of those unlimited plans. I switched over. I noticed no difference from the major carrier I was using in the United States, but the difference is that I'm paying significantly less. I'm only now paying $15 a month for unlimited service. Plus, if you travel internationally like I do, they have international plans that are extremely reasonable, and all you do is go into the app on your phone and you activate it. Plus, most phones these days have eSIMs, so it's a super easy process to go ahead and transfer your number over and get it up and running on your phone. Took me about 10 minutes to swap over. So there's no real excuse for not saving massive amounts of money. This year you can quit overspending on wireless with 50% off unlimited premium wireless plans, starting at just $15 a month. Mintmobile.com/4, F-O-U-R, horsemen, plural. Sorry, it's a little confusing. FOURHORSEMEN. Tell them we sent you, of course. That's mintmobile.com/4 horsemen. Thanks a lot. I mean, it's been a real game changer for me personally, and the service has been excellent. This is a limited time offer. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months plan required. It's the equivalent of $15 a month. Taxes and fees are extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com for details. I do want to go back and talk about the Overwatch and Counter-Strike projects and what you learned from them, Arnold. It's fine.
I did learn a lot from them. It was tough.
Well, I think it's good to talk about the skin revenue stuff too. But when we're looking away from League of Legends, like, you've been a part of some big swings that were the swings you took via Overwatch League and Flashpoint were swings to try and create something like a more solid revenue structure for teams that was traditional in a way, that relied on the excellence of the teams, right, and the ability to drive a competitive product that would then generate revenue like a traditional sports league, right? That was the goal. So what were some of the issues that caused these things to fail? Because you are not now in either Overwatch, the limited circuit though it may be, or Counter-Strike, which actually still has one of the biggest circuits and viewerships in the world.
Man,
so why
I
is
want
that?
to get back into Counter-Strike, and Overwatch is my favorite game. And these are like, I still don't know how to make it work. But I think a couple key lessons I learned is that, one, there's still too many esports teams in the world. And so the consolidation in esports is going to continue to happen until there's fewer. then I think
we will talk about that in a moment. But like specifically off of the Overwatch League and Flashpoint, like why don't these models, which were different, work for teams? Why did they collapse?
I would say each one is very specific. So let's talk about Overwatch League and some of the lessons that we learned, right? Which is if a system is controlled by the publisher completely, it's going to fail because the publisher is going to always prioritize their P&L, as they should, of the game over the growth of the sport. And, I think we saw it in small things, right? Like, I don't agree with everything XQC said, but this guy is the biggest freaking personality online, right? And he's getting banned for the Pepe the Frog thing, right? And it's just like, dude, if anything, that could have been a lightning moment for the league to say, you want this guy to lose. Come watch. Right? And
They should have played him like the bad boy. I know what you mean, like a wrestling heel or something. Yeah, absolutely.
And like they can't because, I don't know what they were optimizing for, but it wasn't fun. And so I think that misalignment between a publisher and a sport is always going to exist. And I hate saying that because I remember, I think Monty said this before, and I was like, you don't understand franchising. Like, it's great. And I'm just like, and I was part of the franchising is great movement like 8 years ago. But like,
you could meet yourself back then.
I don't think it anymore, by the way. So at least I learned.
Yeah.
But like, I wish we would more confidently say that because I guarantee you, at every publisher I've talked to, they're like, yeah, franchising's dumb. It doesn't work anymore. Let's just be honest about it and move on.
I mean, the joke is even Riot doesn't do franchising, mate. In VALORANT, it's just a partnership. So there's another problem right now with League of Legends if we have to make gradual changes. The most obvious problem in League of Legends is if everyone could go back in time and I wave a wand and Doctor Strange open a portal and we all jump back to before LCK franchising, why would anyone do franchising? It shouldn't exist. It doesn't make sense. It's a flawed model because, as you've just said, the actual person you're franchising from, unfortunately, has a greater incentive, quite literally to their shareholders, to maximize their profit, which comes through the game, not necessarily you at the moment.
Yeah, and look, from a publisher side, they should, right? And this is where it was, I think, frustrating. I think with Overwatch League specifically is when the publisher at that point decided that their game is not a competitive game, right? I mean, that's what we went through in Overwatch, right? Which was the guy that ran Overwatch decided that their number one priority was the launch of Overwatch 2. And it was like, P2E and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that's what they claimed.
Instead of like, we are going to patch out GOATs. I know it's like one thing, and it's not the reason why Overwatch League failed, but it's a symptom.
Yeah,
or a
absolutely.
signal of like, they don't fundamentally care about high competitive. Right?
They also, along the XQC lines, like one of the issues that you have when the publishers get involved is that they bring all their baggage with them, right? Which is that when we talk about lowering risk, when Riot or Blizzard are going through insane scandals about their treatment of women, all of these other things that they've had to deal with, and it has nothing to do with the esports side, by the way, nothing. And not even the same people like are involved. You're talking about executives who are game developers, and now the esports products can't take any risks because of the perception to the company, right? And they had to spend all this effort. So, we had this problem with the Overwatch League, I can tell you from being inside of it, which is that all of the use of the Overwatch IP had to be approved by the developer team. So we couldn't do things like fun things with the characters, dress up Reaper in an outfit, because that had to then be approved. So if you're making a week-to-week broadcast and you have like a fun idea, you can't do it. Why is Pepe being banned? That is so insanely out of touch, right? You can't just be like, oh, we're no more Pepe. This is part of internet esports culture. And when you take that away, you seem very uncool. And like,
I'll give you a
just
bigger one,
check
Monty.
out.
I also think they brought their baggage, both in Overwatch and in League, of the silly ideas they have about solo queue being represented on a sports broadcast. So think about this, right? Imagine if the NFL, no one could say fuck because you wouldn't want kids in a pee-wee football team saying fuck. Like, there's no connection. One's a sports broadcast for adults, the other's a children's game. So yeah, I get that in League of Legends, you don't want Tyler 1 in solo queue raging and typing over, but on camera, that's fire. He's a spicy character. He could bring something to your broadcast in the LCS. You could make it interesting. The whole point is, again, I think that's a real thing, Monty. I think they had an overall philosophy that they scaffolded onto the sports broadcast that didn't make sense. Maybe could argued to have made sense in a social, this is the ladder, it's a fun user experience. But put it this way, the reason why I make the distinction there is, if I was playing with Tyler 1 and he flamed me, I'd get mad if I'm in the game. But if I was watching it on a sports broadcast like WWE, I'd be loving it, wouldn't I? I'd be like, whoa, look at this guy, he's going crazy. Let's see what he says next. Like, it's a totally different dynamic.
And ultimately, that's where I think Monty brings up a good point, specifically on the idea that it's different incentives and different goals. Like, you need a sport to be a sport, and it's not going to happen under a publisher. So most of the top CEOs that I've talked to of teams that are profitable and doing well, and we all agree it's not a great business, as in it doesn't really generate any value and valuation, especially because we're now completely off the franchising model, right? So we're all running this really weird business where we do well and then we won't lose a lot of money. And if we don't do well, we lose a lot of money. And if we do the best, we make a little profit, maybe. Actually, no, you break even because you have to then pay the players more the next year. So we're like, well, it's great that we can get it to break even after a series of hard cuts that we make. But where's the future? Where's it going next? That's TBD. And yeah, when it comes to a publisher versus a sport, that's where I think the future is going, which is my prediction is that the vast majority of esports will be handled by a third party. And I think we're seeing that happen and this is where
I know what's crazy. That's literally every esport before these franchise developers.
Well, I think that's where I wish.
That's what esports was,
I wish that Riot would make that jump faster instead of, these like piecemeal things. But I thought more about it. That's from my team perspective. But if I'm running Riot,
by the way, I think you even nailed something there, right? Logically, in games like Counter-Strike, the companies that run the events don't have a game attached to them. They have to have a business model that makes sense. So As you're saying, the solution's right there, mate. Why are you running a tournament? You're a fucking video game team. Why is Riot running it? Riot's a game developer. Do you know who should run the tournament? ESL, mate. Esports Engine or whatever they were. These are the people who run tournaments. Yeah.
You guys know the production costs, right? Of some of these massive, amazing tournaments that Counter-Strike has. And I'm like, they pay nothing. Well, they pay a lot. Look, they pay a lot, right? These things cost a lot of money.
Comparably,
but put it this way, it's like I said about Allen, Texas. There's a reason why they keep hosting one of the major ESL events in Poland, mate. You had it in Katowice before and Krakow before.
If they make the experience amazing, but I don't know. Maybe it will be. But I still remember one slide from Overwatch League, and it was a tracer ball pit. Okay, where you jump. And it was cool. You jump into a ball pit and you pose like Tracer. And I remember looking at quotes for it being $90,000. And I was like, what?
Someone was paying the cousin that, man. That's
Let me go get the McDonald's balls right now.
Of course.
I'll get you an inflatable pool. And I'll get
maybe the quality of the balls had to be really high though, to maintain the integrity of the production and stuff,
wow. This is it's almost like a government at this point. But then I thought, well, you know what? Let me rethink this because I know the people at Riot do care about esports. I know the people that I talk to that I'm friends with, they genuinely care a lot about it, but they must be prioritizing something else. And then I said, well, if I'm Riot and I'm prioritizing a huge refresh of the game in 2027, and that's the biggest risk I'm going to take, why should I take a big risk in 2026? Then they won't. And so I realized, I was like, all right, I understand where they're coming from and where their priorities are. I just wish teams had more freedom so that we can do what we need to do to to actually make this work.
So when you did have freedom, though, here's Flashpoint. You partner up with a bunch of other teams. You own the league. It's in a environment where Valve is very hands off, especially at the time. It was before they had kind of broken up the franchise leagues.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah. That exists today. The circuit's very different, but it was at a time where, in theory, this is the way that the teams can take a swing at actually owning something and creating sustainability. So why not that in the esports world? Because surely, looking at the American sports model, this is the way to get the things that you want. And one of the fundamental
disclaimer, me and Monty worked for Flashpoint, in case people don't know.
Yes. One of the fundamental misalignments between teams, especially with publisher-led esports, is that there is a commissioner of a league in League of Legends or Valorant, but they work for the publisher. They're not, their job is not to fight for the interests of the teams. Whereas I was commissioner at Flashpoint, I was hired by you, and my interests of the league were your interests, right? That was my job.
Oh, you mean like by Flashpoint hiring, right?
Yes, like, the team, because
I get it.
the leadership of the leagues is not aligned with the team interests in every single case. It's either aligned with the TOs or it's aligned with the publishers.
Yeah, I think, I guess the first part of the question, which is, why did that fail? I think part of it is that maybe, including us, and we're guilty of it, we let the players have too much leverage over like things that are experiences that should be positive for fans, right? Like it was really difficult to get players to participate in content and interviews and these things, to play even in the tournaments. And I think there was just like a slew of things that a lot of teams really struggled with because it just was kind of rejected by a lot of the players in the ecosystem. The other part is, I think, the other thing too is the way this model actually works beautifully for a publisher, as in all the teams try to compete with each other to slice up whatever the publisher provides as a pie and try to get a larger share, right? And so we had a lot of cases where teams are literally competing with each other to try to get curry favor, to try to recruit a player, to basically not really move things forward for the benefit of the league, right? Because they're more worried about competing against the other team. And I think that will change more and more because, I know a lot of teams are now ticking at least to sustainability this year. Basically, and it's part of the whole market change is, a lot of the reason why we tick to sustainability is because, at this point, the market has decided there is not a single dollar available. Maybe there's some. I don't want to speak in like absolutes, but there's not much investment dollars available for esports anymore, right? And so the idea that this is some, multi-billionaire coming in and spending a lot of money because this is their passion, like it's not what's happening because like it happens in football because it's growing and it's exciting, it's cool, versus this is a sport where they're getting cut. Growth is shrinking, right? And so that's not happening.
So where do you, now that you said you're interested in getting back in Counter-Strike, well, now the team-owned league model isn't possible in Counter-Strike anymore. So what is attractive to you about Counter-Strike at this point in time? Because it's not what you invested in previously. And where do you think Counter-Strike is successful as a more hands-off publisher approach?
This is from the outside looking in, right? So I gotta preface this and say, like, we haven't figured it out, and we haven't figured out a model that allows for it. The one thing that it does allow is sponsorship freedom. And that opens up kind of new categories that you can tap into. I think, you have the 100 Thieves that just tapped into one. And that's an area that we haven't really, looked at, or honestly haven't really had that much success in. But, when I see the P&L of some of these teams, and there's a lot of these teams that are like for sale, right, in Counter-Strike. And I'm looking at the P&Ls every day, and I'm saying like, oh, they're figuring it out. And this is like P&L positive. The fans are really excited. The events are really awesome. So like that's kind of where it gets exciting for me, just as kind of a general idea, but not specific, which is I'm seeing incredible events where fans are more passionate than ever. Player base is really strong, right? It's not like a player base that's like shrinking. And you can, with sponsors involved, you can run a profitable and break-even business, right? So that to me is attractive. And also, I might be biased when I look at Counter-Strike because that's the game I grew up on. So the same way that like Overwatch was like my like older version of like that's a game I just like love. I may be biased on Counter-Strike because all the CEOs of Counter-Strike teams, they tell me it's really stressful. So maybe I'm just outside looking in. Grass is always
well.
Right?
One of the things you bring up is, when you say open sponsorship categories, that's just a euphemism for, hey, can we have betting sponsors effectively? Because that's the thing that Riot is now opening up for Valorant and League teams, which you have. But there have been some very, I would say, weird caveats around it, which is that it cannot appear on the Riot You can't put a betting sponsor on your uniforms. There isn't going to be any official broadcast integration. So it's kind of up to you.
I mean, he's not going to have it in LCK anyway, right? They're not going to have betting in Korea, do they?
No, they don't. They don't have it in Korea. So I think like unfortunately, it's kind of a handicap for teams in Asia.
Which are, by the way, the biggest teams and the most expensive teams who need this money the most. Right?
By the way, I want to go from a different angle. Here's what I would say, right? We're thinking about it from Riot's perspective, from Gen G's. Let's imagine I'm a fan. So Arnold has a team I thought was the best team last year, Gen G. They have the player I think was the best player, Chovy. Let's imagine I'm a huge fan of Chovy, right? I've got all this money. You know the Fry from Futurama meme? Please shut up and take my money. Please take my money, right? That's the meme, right? What can I buy of Chovy's? I could buy a shirt from you. I could buy maybe some other merch, right? I can't get a skin unless he wins Worlds or becomes a legend in a few years. I can't get anything else as far as I can. That's it. I bought your merch. I'm hoping he wins Worlds. That's it. I can't even, as you say, unless by the way, I'm not Korean either, so there's no chance I'm getting the ticket to Lol Park. Like, the fan club's going to get that. The Koreans are all going to be in line before me. What can I have, by the way, I have fuck tons of money. I make loads talking shit on Riot. How am I going to spend this money on my favourite player, Chovy? How can I spend it, mate? Take my money, please.
That is what I argue every day, is that like not every fan wants to just buy a jersey, right? Like, and there's a lot of us who are older, huge fans, and like, how many jerseys are you really gonna buy? Like, and there's nothing to buy. But from Riot's perspective, I would say you can go buy. There's a cool Galio skin that I think, and there's like these like new skins that you like have to like.
Yeah, but Arnold, the problem is like if I want to buy the first off, you don't have any skins because like. I don't know, man. You could change every player but Chovy, but you still can't win Worlds. Outrageous that this hasn't happened.
There's
outrageous.
There will be joy at the end of a long and arduous journey.
By the way, obvious question: why aren't there MSI skins? Chovy's won 2 of those. Thought it's a championship.
I don't know.
What are we waiting for?
I wish there were more skins,
but that's the point. Is like the publisher misalignment with the teams is this. Okay, so Chovy uses this really cool skin. Riot, in the next 24 hours, sees a spike in sales of the cool skin that he used.
Why doesn't he get a cut?
Riot hides those numbers. Gen G never knows what those numbers are. Nobody knows what those numbers are outside of Riot.
I'll go one step further. Forget just he should get a cut. Why doesn't Riot just pay Chovy to use the latest skin on a champion if he's going to play it?
Not a terrible idea.
Again, notice the problem with this is actually someone, in 30 seconds, because I wanted to play, I was playing a role on Broadway, a one-man show called A Rioter Who Actually Gives a Fuck About Your Team, Arnold. So I was in 30 seconds by pretending what's my motivation, like a method actor. I pretended my motivation was help you make money and help me make money. I came up with something in 30 seconds. You're still waiting for them to come up with like, can I get a cheaper homestand? Like, Mate, they're not. I don't feel like they're actually trying. You might have the best meetings of all time where they pass you that fucking Picari sweat. They go, "Got it just for you, Arnold. It's nice and cold, just like you like it." Oh yeah, we love Faker. Oh shit, he's not. No, I mean Chovy. Yeah, Chovy. We love Chovy and Keane and that. But anyway, we're going to try really hard next year. Like, mate, I'd just say to him, "Where's the answers? Like, change something today. Don't you want to make money in that scenario?" Notice I wasn't greedy. I didn't say give you all the money. I said in a way he's doing marketing for you to get in the skin, like Monty says. Why don't we all get a cut of that? Let's make money. Let's make business, you know. By the way, do you know the most obvious person that would immediately help your game with? Fucking Faker doesn't use skins. Imagine if Faker was told, imagine this to a Korean. This is brilliant for a Korean, mate. Imagine if the CEO told Faker, by the way, Faker, you will help our organisation and our whole youth programme and everything if you play with skins. I think he'd play with skins, mate. I think he'd change his mind. I think the best player in the world, greatest of all time, would use all the skins.
I think if there were more skins, well, I would say one thing that I've noticed is, and across the industry, is like there's actually less impact of low effort team skins for all teams. There's much bigger impact of high effort, high quality S tier skins, priced at a premium, right? Specific to big marketing moments like big international tournaments. Right. And that's something that we've noticed in Valorant, something that we've noticed in Overwatch. That's something that we noticed in like basically every publisher. Right. So the first V1 was every team should have a skin. But what ended up happening was, well, when they make it, they feel like it's a lot of effort. Not all the teams are created equal. Right. So some teams sell really well and some teams don't. And it's kind of equal effort for each. So what ends up happening, and you have to do like a big percentage revenue share to the teams. Right. So you end up internally at the publisher not focusing on it anymore. And so the new model, I think that teams are pushing for, which is, well, go ahead and price it at a premium, and make it for the big tournament so that it's not just like one team that benefits, but everybody that participates in that tournament benefits, right? And so I think that's that's not a big thing to ask, but I don't think that's happening still yet. Not in every game, not in every title, right? And so I wish there was more. Like, I wish there was a skin for LCK Cup, First Stand, but look, I don't control it, right? So what I do control
you get skin if you go undefeated. There's a million things you could do, mate. By the way, the amount of ideas that haven't been explored is stupid. I'll give you an example. There's never been a single event, activation, or skin for like the telecom fucking war. Probably the most famous match in the history of esports. That isn't even treated as anything other than it's just a Tuesday in the LOL park. Like, what are we doing? That's why I don't believe, we're different, me and you, mate. I don't believe they're motivated to help you. I think they do the bare minimum and give you token gestures and tell you, I'll just change things 1% for next year. And then what you don't sit down and think is in 10 years, you'll have gone 10%, mate. Like, you won't be, you need it to go like 300%. You know what I mean? You need immediate action that starts cutting so you can all make money and it makes a lot of sense. Oh, here's the other angle. I said it earlier. It hasn't happened yet, but one day, I know I'm being a prophet here, one day there'll be a game that's as big as League of Legends where the developer might eventually realise, I'll start with this mentality that I want you to be my partner. I won't start with like, you can buy in and I give you a little bit and I bet most of it. Their whole way of beating a Riot and will be, I'll start by partnering with you. And I'm maybe dreaming on that, but I think one day that will happen.
I think it's happening already. I'm looking at games that are expanding their esports, not just now, but also in the future, where they're like, yeah, it's part of our game. And, you know, not every game, very few games ever in history will be as big as League of Legends. But still, like, I think, you know, the one thing that I know is that this current model that we adopted 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever the franchising started, that is broken. Almost everybody has moved away from it, right? We're still holding on to that original sin for some reason. And then it's unsustainable because it's kind of broken, this old model that exists still, or remnants of it. So it won't last, right? So I'm like very excited about what the future of esports will be, because this like old broken model won't exist anymore, right? But I also want League to be successful. I want our investment in League to be successful. I want our players, I want our fans to be successful. But you know, I worry about this stuff, man. Like, it's like, look, I have a different viewpoint because I work directly with the folks at Riot, and like, I know they care. I know they're passionate about this. But I think when you're trying to optimize across multiple variables, and those variables are in conflict with each other, a publisher's interest versus a sports interest. And what you get is a series of compromises that don't make sense for either, right? And that's where I think until we get fuller separation between the sport and the publisher, we won't see what the next version of esports 2.0, 3.0 looks like. And that's kind of where this like weird middle ground is. And that's where we're getting, these like weird compromises that I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense.
In 2026, it might stink economically to be an esports team, but that doesn't mean that you have to stink. You might check out Mando whole body deodorant if you're looking to mix up your hygiene routine in the new year. Comes with great masculine scents like bourbon leather. Of course, it's not just for your armpits. You could put this wherever you might get body odor, and that could be your grundle/taint, your feet, wherever it is. You can use this stick deodorant, or they've got cream tube deodorant, which is kind of like a lotion you could rub in. They've got spray on deodorant, and Mando is made with mandelic acid, which means that it will stop the BO from forming in the first place. They also offer deodorant that's not an antiperspirant, because I actually still like to be able to sweat and cool down and not have my sweat glands blocked. So that's an option here too for Mando. They also have a variety of body washes and soaps in different scents, deodorant wipes, so you can freshen up if you can't get to a shower immediately. So these are all great products offered by Mando. They're also in a variety of stores these days, if you guys are not aware. So you can, for example, go to Target in America, where I have personally seen it on display. But if you check out deodorant sections at major retailers, you will find it there as well. But you guys, of course, can go to shopmando.com, shopmando.com, and new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code. That's code HORSEMEN, plural, MEN, at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide, anything you want, and free shipping. So now's a great time to try Mando and support the Four Horsemen, our show, while you're at it. Thank you very much to Mando for the sponsorship.
By the way, I'll give you a reason I'm also not as confident in you that it will be Riot that changes, because Riot already did another esport, mate. It's called VALORANT. You're in it. Well, here's the thing. They're making the same mistakes in that game they're making in League of Legends. Like in VALORANT, where are all your lands there, mate? You have like 3 lands a year. You know, in Counter-Strike, I think Vitality won 7 tournaments in the first half of the year. Like, you have 3 lands for the whole year. Get ready. I'll do the list. 3 lands for the whole year. It's never gotten as big as CS even, by the way, for a bunch of reasons. Like, the joke is, if Valorant was insanely successful, even to the degree CS's, which is lower than League, you could also put more of your funding into that game if League didn't make so much. You know, you could split it up. The problem is, at the moment, I imagine League overall, because of the size of it, still makes more sense to be the main game. Like, Valorant hasn't gotten to that level yet. The viewership isn't as big. It doesn't have the same fan appeal. Also, they've made some mistakes in Valorant that I find unbelievable, because again, I would tie it into what Monty was saying about bringing baggage. They came into Valorant and one of the weirdest decisions they ever made. This is insane to me. I have played FPS games my entire life, from Wolfenstein to Doom to Quake to all of them. Like, the idea that you would take a premier esport that's going to be an FPS game and you would make it like League of Legends pixie bullshit and cartoonish is mental. That is because one, Roblox existed. That already gets the kids, mate. You're getting adults and saying, which do you want to do? Play Call of Duty using real guns? You want to play CS? You shoot people in the head with grenades? Or do you want to play like, lol, look at this, like, I'm teleporting behind you. Hey, Shingy, what are we doing?
Throwing a bird.
So the problem is, spoiler mate, without the proper lands, that's what people are hyped for in CS. If you do a normal size land, it doesn't get massive viewership either. It gets under 200,000. You do a Cologne, you do a major, that's what gets the millions and all the numbers that can't be beaten by Valorant. And then secondly, I also think people don't vibe, unfortunately, with Valorant as a game, because I think actually its presentation just isn't as appealing. I think there's a rawness to something like Counter-Strike that people can relate to, whereas like there's an abstraction that's, I even think Overwatch looked cooler than fucking Valorant. There's my edgy take for the day.
Overwatch was beautiful. Like, I'm a big
it looks great.
fan.
Yeah, that wasn't the problem with the looks, mate. It was awesome. That was like an adult anime style, wasn't it? But it wasn't like kids style. It was like,
actually,
like
I was looking at some stats of, VCT Pacific growing in viewership, but yeah, out west, right, where like every high schooler was playing Valorant, but like, and this is where I'm like worried about kind of the thing that Monty and I discussed about like Overwatch League. It's like, was that the window when every high schooler was playing it? Just the same way Overwatch, man. That window was
Yeah.
crazy, right? Like
There was a year or two where it was a really big casual game, absolutely.
Now
Yes. But people forget this. Dude, I always remind people, I forget if it was only a week or two, but there was literally a very brief time where even in Korea, briefly it overtook League of Legends in the PC bonds.
like
That's the craziest window ever.
I was a fan of Tens, even though he kicked our ass, when we played and stuff. But like, I'm like, man, that guy's such a big star. I'm like, man, he's leaving? Dude, what's going on? Like, I'm just like,
Yeah, just a year or two into the game.
And like, even in League, I'm just like, dude, is this our window and are we just letting it slip away? Right? Because viewership is better. It's like mainstream. The stars are becoming mainstream in Korea anyway. Like, did we miss our window? And like, that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. And I'll give you one last one. The other one that we all, by the way, this isn't even something that's just me. All the people who are in Counter-Strike live in their own little bubble of Counter-Strike, right? A lot of them don't watch League. They don't watch any other game.
Not at all.
They only hear about even Valorant through like social media. Do you know what the number one thing people in CS donk on Valorant for? It's not the whole, it's a child's game or like, the number one thing they all make fun of every year is you get that stat. It happened last year. It happens every year. If you're the team in a region that doesn't make it to champions and you have to announce in August, that's the end of the year for us, guys. See ya. It's not fucking baseball, mate. What are you doing? Like, you can play the whole year. CS scores in CS until December, bro. Like, yeah, if you don't make the major, you stop in like half of November or something. You know what I mean? People cloud on that. That looks silly. Why are you leaving a third of the year where teams who basically just aren't, I don't know what it is, top 4 or something in Valorant, or whatever they are, if you're just the 5th best team, you're just done for the year. It's mad. Why we're wasting part of the year? It's a video game.
And it's the frustrating part there is like, we have staff that sign up their entire year and their entire life to work on that thing, and they're just done, right? Yep. And even if we invest money, we invest more into that game every year, and it's just like, well, so we're done, like, so we start sponsorships in September, like we just start sponsorship sales in September, like what is going on? But yeah, I think that's where there's a lot of these things that I'm just like, man, it's not sustainable. It's going to change. I think everyone that I've talked to kind of recognizes that, like, yeah, the jig is up. But my worry is like, are we missing a window for something that we're going to regret? Like when we had this excitement of spring final, summer final, man, I went to like Yangyang. It was like this like amazing beachside city. And I was like, I was like trying the food, saying hi to fans. People are lining up to buy merch, and like, and then we're like, okay, now we're just gonna have one. CK Cup we're not having. I'm just like, and it costs $1 million for a team to have another one. And I'm like, what happened? What happened here?
By the way, I'll go back a step. You know what I said earlier about the fact that like the actual incentives, the people who can make money while operating, aren't the best teams that win. So it's actually also, by the way, in theory, that actually you could argue doesn't incentivize you to win the shot. I'll tell you the two teams in Valorant and CS that I think are in what's called the catbird seat. And it's purely because, mate, they're not Korean. Are you ready? In your beloved Valorant, it's Paper X. You think they pay the kind of money fucking Faker gets, mate? Or the top player 10s or something? Of course they don't. Their salaries will be way lower. But the point is, they're really good teams. So in the game, they make up the difference. And I'll bet their margins make loads of sense. We have a similar team, maybe in Counter-Strike, the Mongols. Bro, do you know how much the Mongols fucking pay? Like, if being paid...
Dude, I saw
like
that offline thing.
I'll guarantee it's really low. It'll be like fucking nowhere close to that. But they're making the major final. Well, when they had the old roster. Unfortunately, these people get rewarded, but they're not the ones, like, in theory, when Falcons spends 20 million, you'd hope they were the ones who get the profit, right? But they don't, unfortunately.
Wait, but I don't know if those are the best examples. Those are like the two most fun teams to watch in like their respective sports, right? Like Paper X and Mongols. Dude, those teams are amazing.
Right, tell Chauvin to stop farming, tell him to go all in on level 1 then.
We'll try. We're gonna try to win. But I think one of the things,
on your team.
No, I agree. Like there's a weird incentive right now for teams, even like us, to say like, do we just decide not to spend and invest into the sport and just collect?
I'll tell you what scares me, bro. KT roster, I think, made the craziest miracle run I've ever seen with the roster they had. That roster had not a single expert would it. Bro, some people thought they wouldn't even make Worlds or that they'd go out like immediately and they Swissed it. The idea they were almost won Worlds, right? Logically, if I almost won Worlds, I'm going hard next year. They've actually gone worse. Like, doesn't look like they invested millions of dollars. Don't look like they came back. You know what? This is our chance. We're this close. 10 million, Viper, 2 hours. They didn't do that, mate. They were just like, you know what? Actually, we'll just stick with what we've got. That was actually for us the best case scenario. Whatever we paid, we got almost the best result. Why would I pay like 10 million extra to win one more game? And there's no prize fucking money. Well, there's not much at least.
Well, I think when you see the signal that they're sending, which is, look, we're not going to fund prize pools. It's not that the prize pool is so big that it's like a huge P&L hit. It's a scary message to send, not just to players, but also to fans. Of like, we want you to pay to come, but we aren't going to have a prize pool. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. Instead of, like, are we just now in cut mode instead of growth mode? If so, let's go message that and let's talk about it so that we can work with our fans to get there. Right.
By the way, you know your fans could help you in that exact scenario. It's already been done, mate. It's called crowdfunding. In CS, you buy stickers. In Dota, you used to make a giant prize pool by buying the compendium, right? If I'm the Chovy fan, bro, of course, if they go to Worlds, I think Chovy's going to win Worlds. I'm delusional. Of course, I think I would buy the fuck out of that compendium that has a Chovy page. He's the chosen one who should win Worlds. Faker with the 6 World Shot. Why is that not a thing? Again, why does Riot? I did a whole video on this the other day, mate. In every category, as far as I can tell, it's not like these things haven't been invented. No one invented crowdfunding. Riot just sits in an office, an ivory tower, and goes, zim zalabim. I decide I will not take that money. Turn the money away. Turn them away. And the guy, the show, please take my money. No, I won't do it. I don't know why, mate. I can say I don't know, it's a rhetorical, but I think that's mad. I would let the fans fund it. Why not?
I think one of the things that I look at, though, is that they have figured out how to monetize their game better, right? I think if I look at it from outside in, I would say before they didn't have to worry about monetization because the game grew gangbusters faster than anything else. Then the game stopped growing. Then they thought they were okay. And then it started shrinking, right? Like you see it everywhere, right? And we see it even in our academy and even in our PC cafe. One of the reasons why we started a PC cafe and a competitive focused PC cafe was like, so we can get an advanced read on what kids are playing. Not just that random PC cafe stat that you see reported, but it's like, where are they really playing? Who's playing, right? And I think that was probably their first alarm of like, we got to figure out how to monetize better because we have a smaller player base that's not growing anymore. They've done a better job of that. And I think that's why I'm like, man, I hope this refresh works in 2027. Like, I'm like, whatever you guys need to do to get League refreshed and get new players in the door, I'm all in.
Right.
Like, whatever,
I'll ask this in a really...
I mean, I don't think that's going to happen.
I'll be a little bit more favourable than I was before, right? Don't you think they maybe should have done that before?
Yeah, there's like a saying, the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago. The second best time is today.
Do you know what's funny about that analogy? I was the guy who, when you first could have planted it, told you need to plant the tree. And you went, I don't need a tree. Then the second year, I go, really, get this tree planted right now. And you went, you know what? There's probably going to be no forest in 10 years. Third year, I was like, if you don't plant it now, you will regret it one day. You go, I have a thing called VALORANT bushes. I don't need trees. And then after 10 years, you and Riot go, well, thanks for telling me now, mate. It's like, I told you the whole fucking time. You know what? I'll tell you another thing, Arnold. In 10 years, we're going to look back and go, shit, we should have had double a limit Worlds the whole time. I was saying that since 2013. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome for that one.
Well, I mean, I think that the fundamental issue with League, Arnold, is that even if you refresh the graphics, it's not like MOBAs are blowing up with the kids. It's an outmoded genre in the first place. Secondly, it sucks. Like, you know what, Arnold? You know what really hurts? RTS is dead. I think that hurts more than anything else. Okay. So the fact that I can't have the thing that I like most as a major esport and as a genre that people play, but the kids aren't, just like when MOBAs came around, you know what hurt? That the kids weren't playing RTS. You know what hurts now? That the kids aren't playing MOBA. but we've moved on. It's okay. The kids will always play FPS. We got that one. That's okay. But the point is that, okay, so this gets a graphical refresh and maybe better tutorial systems. League is still a very imposing game to get into. 170 champions is too many fucking champions. Riot made a business model around releasing new characters in order to make money, not only from skins, but from literally buying the characters themselves, right? From creating a fantasy for every player. And that's great, but now it's impossible. Arnold, when I started playing League in 2009 in closed beta or whatever, maybe it was 2008, I don't even remember. I think it was actually 2008. There were 30 champions. It was approachable. Like, I don't think that updating the graphics of a genre of a game that people don't play, because it's not like there are transferable skills, Arnold. One thing I will say about RTS is that those people who grew up on RTSs could transfer those skills to League of Legends. What game in Roblox or Minecraft is like a MOBA? None of them, by the way. I can just tell you that. There are no transferable skills that people are learning that they can port to League of Legends. So you not only have to learn a new genre, you have to learn 170 fucking champions. Like, I don't care if the graphics refresh is good or not. It simply is not going to provide a massive growth of new, younger players. It's not going to do that.
Well, I hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too, Arnold. I want to be wrong, but I don't think I am.
One interesting thing is I feel like even if you're right, that there's still a huge base that should be more excited about League. And I've noticed it even with Mayhem, right? The ARAM mode. Like, a lot of people are playing it. But I also worry at the same time, it's like, does that just mean that it's like a lot of people that used to play it that need like a low barrier of entry to replay it rather than like actually playing?
Yeah, because they're old now and they don't have as much time, Arnold. And also, it's not even just there for you and for esports. Unfortunately, there's the additional barrier. Okay, so these people come back and play Mayhem, or we get new people playing League of Legends. Then you have to get them to watch esports.
Yeah. I think
that fucking sucks. It's not like, oh, we got a new player, they're watching esports. It's like, we got a new player and 1 out of 100 of those players is going to turn into an esports fan.
Yeah.
That blows.
I think people thought esports was going to create new players, but that's not how it works majority of the time. All the numbers that I've seen across every publisher I've talked to, they really view it as just more of a retention tool.
Yep.
And you know, and that's something that is like, it's frustrating because, like, you're right. If this refresh doesn't work, you know, then we're just gonna have to.
Well, again, it might work for Riot, but is it going to work for teams of esports teams? Because there's just so many additional fucking layers of conversion that you have to go through. That's really hard. And also, the question is, what kind of scale of new players do they have to generate if 1 in 100 becomes esports fans to make a meaningful difference for the teams? Outrageous scale.
I think that's where you're seeing the logic of a publisher and why they continue to cut.
Yeah. Look, I totally agree.
But the part that's illogical to me is then, if that's true, then create more freedom for the teams, for third parties, to go and take the sport to whatever extent that it can go, right? Instead of handicapping it and thinking of it as kind of this old model.
Yeah, let's talk about sponsors for a little bit, because I think one of the most interesting things about your company is that you're playing in a Korean esports arena, which traditionally, not only in esports but in traditional sports, has had sponsor-owned teams. SK Telecom, they own T1. And they also own basketball teams. They don't own a baseball team anymore, but you're literally dealing with KBO, which is the Korean baseball organization. All those teams are just owned by corporations in Korea. And but similarly to the publishers of video games, where it is primarily a marketing exercise, it has primarily been a marketing exercise for Korean corporations. Also kind of an issue of national pride, which is definitely more of a specific Korean thing, where the companies have a sense of like duty to the Korean people. And so they also will invest in these sports in order to enrich the lives of Korean people, which is not, I would say, a Western mentality. But KT obviously has a basketball team. They own this League of Legends team. And we were just talking about them being in the World Finals and not increasing spend. Well, I think one of the problems is that what value to KT, Korea Telecom, is being in the World Finals because they don't have a global customer base. Sure, it probably increased some level of Korean, people to switch their phone or internet over. But, Korea's kind of a small country. And so even these big companies, everybody already knows about KT, and KT's already invested, and probably domestic performance is actually more important to KT than winning worlds. So like, what is the mechanism KT has when they reach the World Finals to make additional money? The advertising does nothing for them to advertise to a bunch of people in China and America and Europe effectively. Whereas, obviously it's different for a company like Samsung, but Samsung isn't even in esports anymore, weirdly, even though they could derive more value. So for you, you have a hard time because many Korean sponsors historically, if they want to be involved in esports, they're like, fuck it, just make my own team, right? So you're competing in an arena where those sponsors are like, well, why would I invest in Gen G when I made my own team, have my own team, or if I did previously, like Samsung, I got out for XYZ reasons. So now it's more expensive for me to sponsor you than to run my own team. And we've also seen now this model proliferate to the West. Shopify owns a fucking team in the LCS, right? If anything, the model is going the other way outside of Korea. So like, what challenges do you have with sponsorship, which is the main driver of revenue worldwide for esports?
Yeah.
Right? For teams. Like, it must be especially hard for you.
Surprisingly, we're actually doing very well when it comes to sponsorships. Like, we will probably be year over year growing about 80% in terms of sponsors. So we're seeing a lot of positive progress. But a key point here is they're not interested in the jersey patch. And one of the things is that, they like the jersey patch. Like, yeah, add it on. It helps go into, so how a lot of these ad spend happens is they look at total viewership, impressions, the value of those impressions, brand sentiment, conversion of fans to sentiment of, so all of these things, which a jersey patch no longer helps you do. That's like so old school, right? The one area where it is a huge challenge is when the teams that we are working with in LCK don't have a view of this as a business and as more as like, yeah, this is my marketing spend and this is the budget that I spend for the year, right?
Well, that's just like the publishers, right?
And
it's a marketing
and
spend.
So I get frustrated because I think that's not it's a very like local optimum that you're finding or maxima that you're finding, which is like, yeah, that helps you get through another year. But how are you going to make sure that the budget doesn't get cut when there's a bad year for the sponsor, right? Or for the backer, right? And like, that's where it needs to stand on its own. Like the sport needs to stand on its own, the P&L needs to stand on its own so that you can then make more investments into the fan experience, into offline events, into everything else, right? The only way that we've found a way, which is kind of like using esports to then go create a business, is like we've expanded our business, right, to the gaming academy. We've expanded our business to like a PC cafe. I think it's like one of the top performing PC cafes in Korea now. We have a analytics platform in YourGG. That's how we've expanded, is basically use esports and then go become a corporate arm instead of esports as the corporate. But
that's the core issue, is that everybody does that in different ways. Right? Yeah. Like what's so hard to say about what's unfortunately difficult to say about the success of teams is that, as I alluded to earlier, having a pure esports team is really difficult when, in an ideal world, what fans should want is a bunch of pure esports organizations, because then you will get a better competitive product because everybody is laser focused on how can I create the best team brand? How can I create the most competitive team? Which then makes us have better matches, better players, healthy pipeline, because people are aspirationally attracted to become professional players because the money's there, right? So that's the ideal. But the reality is, here's Arnold making a gaming academy, which is a feeder system. So it's like definitely I would
No,
say, a
it's not
supplemental business.
Now we spend most of our time doing like game development, game design, like all this other stuff that has, because most of these kids, will not become a pro, right?
Well, I mean, that's true of any farm system.
Yeah, look, like
youth
for us,
system.
it's like literally like an after school program now. Like we've just
yeah, but I mean that's what sports are too.
Yeah.
And I don't really see a conflict with that. It's not like every baseball player is going to be a fucking MLB player. You know what I mean?
Like farm system is like you're on the track, right? Versus this is more like after school.
Yeah, it's youth sports. Yeah. It's fine. Yeah. But I mean, youth sports are valuable. Yeah. Like that's why soccer has such a strong youth sports program across Europe, right? Which does many things at the same time. It's a collective good, one might say.
You can even argue, by the way, in Korea specifically, actually something like that has cultural value, because actually one of the worst things about Korean esports is the jump up between amateur who makes nothing and pro who makes a good living and then can go to your family and go, hey, I make a good living, it's a real career. That chasm is really stressful and difficult to leap through. Whereas if instead someone's heard of Faker and T1 and you get to go to T1 Academy, that feels like I'm halfway there, you know?
This is really important. So you bring up a really good point. So like the reason why I care so much about League is partly personal, partly it's because of the fans, partly it's our business, but it's also because I've seen so many failed ecosystems. Do you know where all of our coaches are from? They're from all these other failed ecosystems.
StarCraft and stuff like that, yeah. Anymore. Loads of them, yeah.
Do you know how hard it is to go get a normal job after you've become you were an incredible failed player in an ecosystem that doesn't exist anymore? Like, so it's funny, you bring up like Overwatch League and you bring up these things, and I'm like, I'm seeing that when you let the publisher control it, the scene doesn't exist anymore. Right? And I'm just like, I don't want to sign up for that. Like we'll be okay if Valorant doesn't work or League doesn't work or Rocket League doesn't work, we'll figure it out. There's other esports titles, there's other esports games, but if it
why do you think we've diversified our business here, Arnold? We just keep getting into more esports.
It's actually even a problem.
We're a multi-title corporate entity.
Since you invoked it earlier, the idea of 10 years, 100 years, you were doing the LeBron where you gave me the ludicrous expectations, right? So let's say 100 years from now, here's your main problem. It's very unlikely League does exist in 100 years. Whereas actually, even with some of the sports dying off, those sports probably do. But that's another area, by the way, we're getting back to the idea that publisher incentives are misaligned with esports league incentives, because think about the sports that don't require people to even play the game for the sport to exist. Like, mate, I would never fight a single round of MMA in my life, but I'll watch the fuck out of a UFC. Imagine if me not wanting to fight in MMA means the UFC goes, shut it down, because they also somehow run all the gyms for MMA in the world. That is another problem with having a sport belong to. Essentially, I do think you need at some point to decouple the sport. This is why I would say you give it to third-party people who are incentivized to run their own business.
That's what's happening.
You license it or whatever, whatever angle makes sense for the game dev, you can still make money.
And I think that's happening. And it's going to be a clear separation when that happens, of the publishers that embrace it and the publishers that don't. And the ones that don't are going to be left behind. And you know what that also means when it comes to third parties tournaments is like they're just going to select the handful of teams that it makes sense to partner with.
Yes, it's going to be like a Superleague, yeah.
Yeah. And that's it. And like,
yeah.
And so for us, it's like, our goal is, yes, that's going to happen. We better freaking survive, right? And we're not going to survive by just being a team that sucks, just like hanging on for dear life. So like that to me is a challenge, is like every time I fly in to Korea, the taxi drives by the water and you see like one of our competitors has this like gigantic gold building. And I'm just like, how the heck?
What he's talking about, I'll translate this for you. This is the Hanwha building that is on the south side of the Han River. And it is a ludicrous building that looks like a giant gold brick. It's like all glass, but the windows are tinted gold.
And so, I appreciate the way he actually makes it sound like Barad-dûr from fucking Mordor with that Sauron music. Like,
it's a beautiful building. It's a beautiful, but then I'm just like,
it is.
It's cool. Figure it out. We're going to figure it out. We're a small
You want to have your own. You want to have the skyscraper in front of it. That's too 2 floors bigger. I get it.
But by the way, he's absolutely right. This is actually how you take the taxi on the highway to get into Seoul through Yangjae, is like right next to the building.
So like, there's a lot of memes about us. We're like, oh, like Arnold's broke, Genji's broke. And I'm like, we're still going to figure it out. Like, we're not broke. We spend a lot. But we also can't spend as, honestly, they're right in the fact that we can't spend as much as a gold building, right? So we're like, all right, that's not an excuse. Like, we owe it to our fans to still try. Like, there are cases where teams with lower salaries still win. So, like, we're going to go figure it out. And, like, by the way, this is like, we are part of the problem. Like, our salaries are very high, right? But still, I always try to get that, like, motivation of, like, all right, we're still going to figure it out,
It's a new year, and that means you may have some resolutions about improving your health, your fitness, and perhaps what you're eating. And I think Factor meals can help you right there. Now, we're all busy, and I know sometimes I don't make the best food choices if I am super busy. Maybe I'm going to overspend on a delivery order or choose a less healthy option. Well, fortunately, Factor can make your life both easier and healthier, because what happens with Factor is you subscribe, they ship you a box every week. You can select your meals, and they have an excellent rotation, excellent variety. They ship your meals to your house in a cooled box. Nothing's ever frozen. You pop these meals into your refrigerator, and then you just microwave them for 2 minutes and they are ready to go. They support your wellness goals. There's more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options that are packed with protein and good for you fats. Perfect when you're surrounded by, of course, less than healthy temptations, let's say. They also have some premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost these days. And they have Asian-inspired meals now with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. Korean beef bowls, Thai coconut curry. 97% of customers say that Factor has helped them live a healthier life, and I can attest to that too. When I've had Factor, when I'm in the States, I definitely have used it instead of making some, I think, less healthy and also, frankly, just more expensive options. There's also a variety of stuff Factor can put into your box. I think, a variety of sides. Protein shakes were a huge one for me that I really enjoyed, as well as breakfast options, which leads to you guys can eat smart at factormeals.com/horsemen, plural, MEN, 50 off. So it's horsemen 50 off. And use code horsemen50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. So just throw that in right away. That's code horsemen50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. This offer won't last. Lock in your savings. Offer is valid only for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscriptions purchase. So thank you very much for Factor. We love you guys, and it helps us out when you guys support our sponsors. So if you're looking to make meal planning a little bit easier this new year, give Factor a try. So we circled around this earlier, and it's important to talk about this now, which is that there has to be consolidation. So Thorin implied the Super League, which is something I've been advocating in League of Legends for years, and you'll appreciate this, Arnold, because you experienced this yourself in Overwatch League, which is, people have said many times, like, I hate, when StarCraft just became they broke it up into the regional leagues in North America and Europe, and then Koreans came over there, and then Koreans dominated those leagues, blah, blah, blah. And then it just became like a global Korean circuit. One of the things that is just objectively true about the Overwatch League is the consolidation of all the teams in LA actually elevated the play of people globally. And we actually saw it wasn't Korean dominance. It was mixed rosters of Koreans and Westerners that were winning. Before Overwatch League, Koreans were much better. When they all got into the same place and practiced together, turns out that the level of practice actually raised all the skill.
I think one of the later seasons wasn't the shock there, wasn't the MVP like one of the American players, wasn't it? Like,
yeah,
I forget who it was. Like, was it Sinatra? Was it Super? It was one of them. It was one of the American players. I think it was actually the MVP even.
Yeah. Sinatra was a league MVP.
Right.
And, when we look at one of the problems in League of Legends is because everybody is siloed away in their own regions every year. I have advocated for a super team system that is based in Korea, because obviously it's easier to base it in Korea than China, because foreigners living in Korea is, substantially easier than foreigners living in China. But if you even if it was in China, let's say, if you bring in all of the top teams from around the world and we have a 20-team super league where the regional leagues are feeder leagues, like LCS becomes an under league, right, that feeds into this team. I think, and people are saying, well, league is boring because it's like the Koreans always win, or maybe the Chinese win sometimes, but there's no hope for the West. I firmly believe that if you had put some of these G2 iterations in Korea and they actually had year-round great practice, these are potential championship.
Give you the example that tells you it, Monty. There was a team of 5 players that no one fucking knew from Mongolia, but because they played in the European circuit, where it's the best region in the world, they won EWC and came second at major. Like, that would never have happened.
Also,
if they'd have stayed in Mongolia, bro, and only got to go to the major twice a year, they would never have done that, I'm telling you right now.
Also, the old Fallen roster, right? The Brazilians came out of nowhere, but because they could go and compete consistently. The problem is that the practice is so ass in America and Europe that sure, you can go to a boot camp, but the meta changes super fast in League of Legends with the patches. And so you have to be consistently in those environments. And also, it's just, Arnold, it is so infuriating to follow professional League of Legends. It is literally impossible for people who co-stream the game for 12 hours a day on average, 7 days a week. You can't even watch all the games at Tier 1. That is ludicrous. It is so fucking hard to know what is going on in every single league in the world because there's too many teams and there's too many games and you're overwhelmed. And by the way, this is the increasing popularity of LCK is because people realize they just want to watch the best games, especially as a game gets older in its life cycle. Fans become more hardcore because the people who are around 17 years after the release of League of Legends are the hardcore fans.
Tell you an underrated detail no one ever gives credit for LCK's viewership. Western co-streamers.
Yep.
That didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Like that's clearly added. Cage or Dom, that's a big deal. Yeah, people watch it that way.
The secret things about LCK too is Chinese viewership is huge. Yep. Vietnamese viewership is huge. Southeast Asia is a big up and coming viewership region. People want to watch the best. And so, if LCK, if we're saying, okay, we're going to have a final in Hong Kong because this region, and by the way, only this region is important enough to be able to take a domestic Korean final and stick it in another fucking country, then clearly it's big enough that we should be seriously considering the Super League at this point in time, bringing in all of the best brands from around the world, consolidating the teams. There are too many esports teams, period, right? And we hinted earlier that they need to consolidate.
You could even argue that letting Los Ratones into LEC implies you're doing a mini version of that anyway. You already know their brand's important. You want to have them compete with you. Surely the same logic would imply have KC and Los Ratones play T1 and Cloud9 and fucking BLG or something. Wouldn't that same logic apply?
Yeah. But like imagine how big Casey's fandom could get if they were actually competing against T1. Like, isn't that what you want?
And they've got Koreans even, bro. They've even got Korean players. They probably could activate there too.
That's what Red Bull is doing. But surely we should be saying there has to be some level of consolidated league for viewership. It is so hard for a fan to follow the circuit. It's so hard.
I agree. So I had a different version of that, which was I was hoping that at least to me, my view of how international expansion should have worked would have been, before we decide to, have a match in China and these things, it's how do we make the playoff system opened up to more international teams in Korea? Right? Why can't the top Vietnamese team and the top Japanese team and whoever play in Korea and be part of that circuit? And how do we actually have, it's basically, you see it with VCT Pacific and you see the average skill level of all of the regions continuing to rise as they go and play against each other, because guess what? Talent is talent. And if you put them in the right environment, they're going to be incredibly successful. Right. And I think that's where one thing is, I don't mind the idea that LCK can become kind of like a VCT Pacific type model, but I only would want to agree to that if there's more opportunities for fans in Korea because of this change, right? Versus right now, it's like we're taking it away because we think that's a direction we want to go. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, that's what's said in the press release. And so we're going to do a match in China, which is great for us as a team. We have so many fans in China. We can sell merch. We can do activations, and it's going to be really fun. But I'm like, how do we give? So is it up to the teams to go figure out how to give something back to the fans in Korea that just lost a spring final and an LCK Cup? It's like, all right, is that us? We'll try, but I don't think we're going to be anywhere near the weight that we have, right? So my view is I'm all for a bigger, I don't want to call it Super League because that's like tainted after soccer, but let's call it.
It was a good idea in soccer, by the way. It was a super good idea.
Well, let's call it a regional league, and also open up more opportunities by lowering production value, so that more fans can actually go watch their freaking team that they want to watch and pay tickets for.
Well, to be fair, that's what happened in LEC as they announced this slew of like homestands for KC and Koi, right? But I just think at this juncture, if we are literally in a scenario, which we are, where LCS and LEC viewership is decreasing and there isn't a there's no more co-streamers for them to tap to make number go up. LCS viewership is in a disastrous place compared to what it was historically. Something has to change. And if LCK is doing well, I'm not saying like ruin LCK, but what I am saying is I think objectively, if you expand to 20 teams and you put all the teams in Korea, the level of Western play will go up. You get all the brands you want, G2, KC, Cloud9, all of the big name teams go over and just invest in a Korean infrastructure. And then you can have these away matches like you do what Overwatch League intended to do at first, which was the WWE Traveling Roadshow, which is like we're in Paris for the next 2 weeks and all the games are going to be played here in these massive arenas. And sure, does that suck for jet lag? Yes. Is it a great product that you bring all of the best teams in the world to one location and you play the regular season games? Yes. And those tickets will sell out straight up, straight up. And does it justify the cost? I don't know. Right. That's an enormous logistics math problem. But I suspect that if you did it correctly, it would. And I think it's just time that Riot, they wanted to have the regional leagues because they wanted to activate all the individual fan bases, right? And all the player bases and energize those regions. But it has just become this massively unwieldy thing where it's so hard for any reasonable person to watch the professional games. It's just a bad product. And we now live in a world where MSI viewership way up, Worlds viewership way up. They're adding more international events. LCK viewership way up because more global fans want to see the best competition. What the market is telling us is that what sells? The best competition. That's up. That's what people are watching. We need to give them more of that.
Yeah.
And in a reasonable way.
And I think
because what the fuck? Literally, what the fuck is the point of the LCS right now? What is the point?
I can't speak on that. I don't know enough about the LCS, right?
Well, here, Arnold, what is the point of a product where the competition is bad, the viewership is down? The only reason it keeps going is because they have partnership agreements with the franchise teams, and it would look bad optically for PR to have it go away.
I don't think that.
But it's a dying product.
I don't think that's the actual reason. I think it's my personal
what is the reason?
Look, I don't have I don't look at.
But if you don't know the reason, then you can't tell him that his reason's wrong, can you?
I'll tell you my viewpoint, right?
Yeah, go on then.
So my viewpoint is that the game is going for a big refresh, right? And there's a lot of value in the game being successful in North America.
They should brand it. They should actually call it League Refresh. You got the fucking branded down
place for the a very successful game to relaunch and refresh. I think is very valuable, right? Like I really believe that a company that is prioritizing P&L is only going to make bad P&L decisions. They will make some P&L decisions that are bad, but I think that they
need to
see
refresh their
value.
margins.
I think they see value in it, in their model. Otherwise, I don't think they would continue.
Sure. By the way, a quick aside, I just want to say right now, this is purely my own opinion. Also, bring back the spring finals. Stop protecting Faker, you little bitches. Give Chovy a chance to get those fucking 10 titles. Play on an even field.
I'm
Faker
not part of
started with
that.
3 titles.
I
Of
don't know
course.
what that's
Listen,
about.
bring
I
it
don't know what
back.
that's about.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
I'm not
You have to
part
have
of
3 or 2 chances to win.
But what do you think about consolidation of teams in general, Arnold? Because like it can't go on where there are this many teams. It's absurd. Like so many teams bring no value to the space. They don't actually have fans.
Well, here's one thing that I do want to say, which is like, first off, I think what Faker has brought to the sport, to the league, is insane. Like it's hard to really recognize how great of like you could never even imagine a better role model for a game and for a sport than this guy has been for so long, right? And my issue is that we are now facing a system that has really the potential to create these incredible stars, but now we are now going to see fewer and fewer teams, right? And teams are an essential part of creating stars, right? And I think I look at all of the names that I remember growing up on and thinking about, and like TSM and like RNG and so many freaking names, right? Remember Echo Fox? Remember all the hype? And remember, 100 Thieves is no longer in LCS.
Remember Renegades?
Like, it's insane that like we've lost so many storylines and so much history and so much everything, right? And that's like, what is football without Manchester United, right? What is, you need this thing. And we're now heading to a system. I completely agree. My prediction, and this is what we're getting ready for, I think 40% of the teams will exist in the next 5 years.
It's a great change.
I think it's a great change for the teams that exist. I don't know if it's a great change for the fans of the 60% of the teams that won't be around anymore.
But the thing is that consolidation, even if you lose some fans, it sets you up better for the future because the stronger brands will remain, presumably most of the ones with bigger fan bases, or at least with more money to spend to do things to acquire fans. And so the next generation of people who latch onto these teams hopefully will latch onto sustainable teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the issue. Like we talk about, oh, it's such a shame TSM died. Why did TSM die? Because their esports business was garbage, even though they were huge, and their real business was a website network and like the Blitz app. And those are the things that survived. Like, you can't look at it and say, it's such a shame TSM went away. TSM went away because even their brand couldn't help them in this fucking shit show.
I mean, if the system is set up in the wrong way, you're just going to have fewer and fewer teams that participate, right? And that's what's happening. And like, I think it's a shame because it's very easy to point to bigger and bigger viewership, which, even as, look, Gen G always performs really well on our viewership reports, no matter who we're playing. But at the same time, like T1, Faker, like they create so much viewership as well, right? And are there easy ways for them to take advantage and us to take advantage of our fandom and figure out like how we can actually build a great business model behind it? No, we don't have that much freedom around it, right? And so even if it's consolidating without loosening the restrictions you place on teams, it's not gonna matter, right? It's not gonna be enough. Like at some point, consolidation becomes too much consolidation. So I think what's going to happen is maybe 40% of the teams will still stick around. They will still exist. And I think because there's fewer teams, there's going to be a bigger call for a bigger reset, right? But it's a painful process to get there, and I just hope we get there faster rather than later.
When you talk about removing restrictions, what are the restrictions you want removed?
I think each team wants different restrictions removed, right? Like I saw Tucker talking about like, hey, he wants 10 more events.
Tucker Roberts is one of the people who owns T1, by the way.
Look,
guys, just so
for their events, it makes perfect sense, right? They want 10 events. For us, we want production requirements to be loosened or lowered so that we can run more of these events than just like a one-off that loses money, right? The other is actually around clearer lanes for sponsorship partners that are equal across regions. So, there's a deal for a betting partner, but we don't understand like why we're restricted fully, what we can and can't do.
Are there, just out of curiosity, are there different laws in Korea that would prevent, these kind of betting sponsors?
There's definitely different laws. There's different laws in every single country, right?
And even in America between states.
Yes. But we get more confused because the restrictions by different publishers in those same countries are so different. And so when we say, this is really confusing because other publishers allow it and you won't even entertain the conversation, that's very confusing for us, right? And it's very difficult. I think those things are really important. The other restrictions that I think are really tough is we don't control the restrictions, right? There isn't really a great feedback loop right now. It's just every year we get told by corporate what's happening and what's not, and kind of just have to accept it. We can provide feedback, but they won't listen, and they won't even tell us why. So that's a tough system to be in as a team. At the same time, it's what we signed up for, right? I mean, it says a lot of the teams don't care as much because they have a marketing line budget that they want to figure out how to spend, and they go spend it, and then they're done for the year. For us, that's a bigger challenge that I'm trying to figure out, which is how do we build a better fan experience if we are just worried about the future of the sport, right? It doesn't make sense to really invest in this future. That's why I'm still doing it. I still believe in the 2027 game refresh. I worry if it doesn't work, what happens?
Well, you have to.
Maybe I have to, right? Maybe I
you have to.
Just believing.
They also do pay you to do that as well. You don't do it on the charity of your heart. Like you get a nice big fat salary, I'm pretty sure.
But I think it's something that I really hope works.
When you look at this, Arnold, I want to know what your take on. If you were in charge and could make major changes, what are the first changes you would make to help teams globally in terms of revenue?
I'd reset the entire structure of the league. I would go out and say, look, you have
of every league everywhere. Like, what are the biggest structural changes across all esports you would make?
Oh, across all esports.
Yes. If you could snap your fingers and change the relationship, because I think a popular one would say, can we change the IP laws that force us, nobody owns the IP of soccer. So the problem is that with the publishers always have to be involved in the competitive system.
I would create, there's this thing called the open contract or something like that, let me talk about it. So what I would do if I could snap my fingers is I would get all of the teams around the world and as many publishers that are willing to sign kind of a common framework that we all agree to when it comes to skin sales, to league participation, to team participation, and really create kind of a new framework for how revenue works and should be shared with a publisher and with teams. And with tournament operators, right? So kind of a standard, okay, here is the percentage cut of skin sales that we're going to have for every tournament that exists, that is held by the tournament operator. Here's the cut to the tournament operator, here's the cut to the player, and here's the cut to the team, right? And this is the framework that we're going to say we all agree to across all publishers that this is the model that we should go. I think that would probably solve a lot of the problems that we face today, because if you agree on a common business model that should work across esports teams and publishers, then publishers will start optimizing their leagues so that this actually works. So one of the reasons why this current Asia League doesn't work is that a lot of the revenue for certain publishers are managed by different country-specific P&Ls, right? And so it's always kind of like, oh, this is my marketing spend. This is my marketing spend. I should have it for, I don't know, for Texas, right? I just said shooting example of a random state, but like, versus if we say, well, the only thing that matters is that in this tournament, we get as many eyeballs and as many people to buy the skin in the game, then the tournament operator, the player, the team, and the publisher are aligned towards it. And they go say, okay, then these regional tournaments need to be as massive as possible. Well, then we must organize the regional league to be a regional league and have teams that are participating kind of all around in that region, right? So my belief is that kind of a common framework across all publishers would really, really change what we need. The other is kind of a more of a magical cultural reset where we just decide that, you know what, this is about content and we will enforce content days, right? Because that's the only way that, you know, you're going to have teams not scrim on certain days and create better content that actually grows the fan base, right? So kind of similar to, you know, what Flashpoint used to have, right? And like have more of those. And I think as a team, it's our job to complain about content days. We do. We tell LCK, oh, you have too many content days. But in general, the system is better because of those content days, right? So I think having like a set number of days per month, which is like completely focused on content, not on scrims, would actually really benefit the sport.
Well, the problem is that if right now it's like team discretionary to a certain degree, which means that the teams that do more content get less practice, right? So unless it's globally enforced,
exactly.
You know, the issue is that with traditional sports, you can have content days because they simply can't play traditional sports any more than they already are because of physical limitations. But in a world where you could play this game 16 hours a day and do 1,000 scrim blocks a month, literally anytime you're doing content is a sacrifice of practice, right? Yeah. It's not like, oh, my legs hurt, I can't run anymore, let's do some content.
No, 6 days a week, these kids are scrimming or playing. And so you're going to take their
and they're also playing on the
content.
7th day. Let's be real. They're just doing it on their own.
Yeah. You're going to take the 7th day for, you know, just for content, which of course a lot of players don't like doing content, but you know, it's like a muscle, right? The more you do it, the more you get used to it and the better you get to be at it. Right. And so, you know, I think it'd be amazing if, let's say, if the LCS said, we are a content league and, you know, 10 days out of the 30 is about content. I think that's what like LR is doing, right? Which is like they are a content team and they get a lot of viewership. So it's probably really helping that ecosystem, even though the way that it was executed is probably causing a lot of issues and problems.
Well, the problem is I would say, like, you know, Thorin can speak to this, but Los Ratones is actually slowly morphing into a pro team, which is, they're complaining about that now. They're complaining about not doing enough content, I would say. Like, I think that's been the thing is that
you keep talking amongst yourselves.
I mean, I think like if you look at the way that Boss is saying, like, I don't want to be on a pro team.
Supposedly that was from like 10 months ago. I think that was like an out of context clip or something.
Got it. No, but
they've stopped streaming their scrims and stuff.
Oh, they stopped streaming. Like they stopped streaming their scrims.
You know, as
far as I know, you're not allowed to. I don't believe you can like scrim an LEC team and show the scrims. They already wanted LEC teams to scrim them when they were in the RL. I think it wasn't allowed by Riot for like competitive reasons. I'm not an expert on that topic though, but I believe that's how it goes. So actually, in theory, it actually probably limits them as a team. And also, as far as I know, they're not becoming a pro team. The logic is after this one LEC versus, it's over. Like they're supposed to just do whatever.
I mean, maybe Thorin, you probably have a better view on this because you've seen it in so many different esports and stuff, but isn't there also a deeper thing that like I'm feeling, which is this shit isn't as fun anymore for a lot of players? Like,
I mean, listen, I have a different perspective on that bit because I've never thought leagues were fun. I don't get it. The only leagues I'm aware of are
fun, like just like energy, right? Like
the vibes,
not just the vibe.
I agree.
Oh, everybody should have having a great time, but like just that, like I'm gonna go and like.
I think, you know, having been in esports. I think it has lost
You know what? I
its
don't
luster.
even. I would ask him a question. What the fuck does that even mean? Like, what? When Worlds happens, is it not as exciting? It might not be for you because your head gets fucking banged off every time. I bet it's fucking brilliant to be Faker. Looks like it's more exciting than ever, mate. I bet it's brilliant. It's way better than 2015. What are you talking about? It's giant stadium. Everyone Faker.
No,
Sounds awesome, mate.
I'm
What's not fun?
No, in the biggest moments, it's really fun. But I'm talking about, I talk to a lot of players in these leagues that are not growing, right? They're not having fun. Like, they're not just fun as in like they're enjoying their time. But
Right, you know what? I get your question now. I'll answer your question. Right, here's why. I just said you have leagues that are in studios with 500 people. Do you want to know what the most exciting moment in a young Counter-Strike player's career is? It's not to win a major. That's a million of miles away. It's just to make the playoffs and get to go in the arena.
Right.
It might not even be a massive one. It could be blast, right? But if you get to go in the arena, like the joke is, we actually had a team 2 years ago from Portugal. They were fucking nobodies called SAW. And they made a miracle run and got to the playoffs of IEM Cologne, one of the biggest events in Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
The joke is, mate, for them, that may as well have been like winning the major. Because before that, they were watching that on their stream at home. And they played. If they got in the group stage, got immediately knocked out. So to just walk out onto that stage and have the whole crowd, I can tell you, one of the competitive problems in Counter-Strike is sometimes fans will try to cheat and have a sign, go B. That, right? Here's the thing. I always used to say, because I'm a purist, put them in a studio, put them in a soundproof booth. Players tell me, no, please don't. Because I live for hearing the crowd cheer when I do the kill. I live for people responding and I can stand up, I can do that. So if you want to make it more fun, do things like that, mate. I would even say, you could argue in League, it's actually more fun. Are you ready for this take? It's more fun to play one of those Red Bull events at a KC homestand and be booed by KC when you walk out than it is to win the LEC in an LEC studio. Which is more hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think,
and surely that's tying back into what we said at the beginning. This is why you want live events, you want live activations, you want the telecom war to be in a stadium with like one of those basketball stadiums in Seoul that's 10,000 people, and one side's fucking KT fans and one side's T1 fans, and before the game you do chants back and forth. That's way better than 500 people in the LoL Park. It just is.
yeah, Low Park feels like a wedding hall. It's very quiet. But
by the way, it made
it was a wedding hall, by the way. It literally was.
It made perfect sense when the league was in 2015 or whatever it was, or I can't remember when it came out. That when it was tiny and you couldn't fill it, it made sense. You needed a small. The problem is in the modern day, like I say, big matches should probably be like 2,000 seater, 5,000 seater.
But I think it's like, that's a really good point, because like I still remember 2002 World Cup. I mean, obviously I didn't see it in person, but I was at a mall in LA with like 1,000 people just like cheering like crazy, and like I'm still a big football fan just because of that, right? And just even the fan experience of like that moment becomes like a core memory, right? And then the way I see, the worry I have is that we're just going to decide we're going to cut costs without creating a solution for the actual core fandom, which is like, I want a hype thing I can be a part of. And so what the cost structure, what that leads to is we're just going to do everything online. It's going to be fine, right? Viewership is still going to be there. But then after a while, it stops growing because people just get bored of just online, right? So I don't know. I think like some matches can be online and these kind of things, but you're right. Like we need to go figure out that offline experience and try to make it happen.
Yeah, but here's the problem. I'll pose a counterpoint. If I'm Riot, I don't listen to any of the things you just said. Here's why. Because COVID happened, and I learned that I can even do it with no fans in the studio, still have an alright viewership. I can cut all my costs way down. So why would I then invest money and build it all out again? I'll let you do that, mate. You figure out the $1 million, come back, and you can run the event.
Wait, so that's
you have my permission to run $1 million event.
That's my biggest fear in this, is that without that separation, that's the optimization that makes sense for a publisher. And I actually think for a publisher that makes sense, right? For the sport, it does not. That's scary.
Listen,
man.
I don't want to make it political, so you don't have to respond to this. Keep a poker face. I'd even imply I don't think there's that much of a motivation necessarily for a giant Chinese megacorp to help you, a Korean guy running a video game team, do a great event. Like, maybe I just do what the Chinese megacorps do and just grind the margins and get all the profit. And also, you're not China, mate. I might do things in the LPL, maybe. Who knows? But why do I give a fuck about you guys in the LCK?
I don't think that's true, because they've invested quite a bit into the LCK, right? They've invested in.
Have they?
They're investing right now into the LCS, right? Like,
what are they doing?
I don't know. Like, I think Riot acts pretty independent. So if I look at the end of the day, what Riot will optimize for will be their P&L because they're a company, right? And we shouldn't treat them like a human being. They are a company. And so the only logical answer is how do you create that separation for the sport from the publisher? And the more and further it separates, the more and more successful the sport can actually be.
Yeah, but logically, if you're saying they're optimizing for P&L, then somewhere along the line they decided that taking this in-house and running because like the thing about it that's very damning about this entire thing, Arnold, is that when they were given a chance to not run Valorant, they ran Valorant. And why is that? What's the reason? Like they could have just had a new game and moved it entirely to an independent circuit. Certainly, everybody was chomping at the bit to do that. We were. With Flashpoint, we ran a Valorant event in the early days. All the TOs wanted to run Valorant events. If you had said to the TOs, you can have this circuit and run it like CS, they would have done it. And Riot could have eliminated all of the costs associated with that. And in fact, just charged licensing fees, maybe made money. But why? They made a P&L decision not to do that. Why?
You're going to have to ask somebody at Riot.
Well, but my point is clearly the math says that it's better if they run it for whatever reason.
I think if I'm looking at Valorant and the esport, I think the launch and the initial momentum, that could have only been done with a lot of control, right? But at a certain point, you have to let parts of it go, right? And I think that's the point. I think we are beyond that point for League, where they should let much more of it go. For Valorant, I don't know, TBD.
I just find it very curious that they would run back, do you prefer the Valorant model with the partnerships over the franchising? Like, do you think this is a good evolution of it? Because one thing that Valorant did was it kind of hybridized the CS open circuit with a more formalized franchise system. And from what I can tell, owners seem to prefer that.
Yeah, I definitely prefer the Valorant model because, I mean, to be very frank, right? They took a lot of the learnings from League and they said, let's not make the same mistakes, right? And is it perfect? No, of course not. But it feels like a step in the right direction, right? And, do I believe in the franchise model in League continuing in the same format? Absolutely not. And it's just like, well, let's go figure.
Well, how do you get out of that though? Because you have to buy people out. It's extraordinarily expensive.
I think somebody needs to go and basically figure this out and start moving this thing forward, because it's like weird middle ground and all these compromises. It's not a great experience for fans, right? Like if it's a bad experience for fans, it becomes a bad experience for teams, and if it's a bad experience for fans, it becomes a bad experience for teams, and it becomes a bad business for teams. So I don't know in this one what's actually going to happen. But that's where, I don't want to just complain about Riot, because I think they've done a lot of steps to like move things in the right direction. But the pace that this is going is probably not fast enough. And you're right, there's this little window here where they got to launch 2027 and refresh this game. But I don't know if that's actually going to, I don't know if we're going to make the necessary changes to make 2027 as successful as it could be.
My issue is just seeing how it converts to substantially new numbers of esports fans, even if it converts substantially new numbers of players or brings old players back.
Yeah. My question to you guys would be, are there really interesting lessons that should be taken from, CS to CS2, Dota to Dota 2? Like, are there interesting lessons to be taken from there? Obviously, lots of lessons from Overwatch to Overwatch 2. So,
by the way, I'm serious. I always say the same thing on all League of Legends talk shows, because everyone has this mistake that they think what makes Counter-Strike awesome is what makes the casual game awesome. It's easy to understand, they're real life guns. It's No, I'll tell you what makes Counter-Strike esports awesome. Everything's a tournament. Every single tournament, even if it's 2 or 3 weeks, on the second or third week, I am then going into the playoffs. The playoffs is in an arena. Then I have the fans and the live component. Now I have legendary moments. I have confetti. confetti rain down when people, that's every few weeks. By the way, you know the thing in League where they go, it'll make it less special. It's just not true. It's literally just not true. Like, it's amazing to see people win many, many championships. No one watches golf or Formula One goes, should just be one rig race. Why the fuck have they got all these different Grand Prix? Why have they got all the Masters and that? Should just have one tournament. That'd make it really special. Actually, it'd make it whack.
Literally used to be League in Korea.
It would make it whack. So I think personally, tournament format is the way to go. And yes, part of the bet, what makes tournaments special is to have the playoffs. You only do the playoffs in an arena, even if it's 3 days. Look, and again, that's why, to go all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, I'm not Riot, mate. I didn't tell you that you had to make $1 million tournament. I know ESL does not run tournaments in fucking Poland and have to pay $1 million. I know they do things like select Poland because that city will give them a deal on the venue and give them cut costs. And guess what? That city will then also do standard sports practice. We will calculate how much tourism we will get from fans coming in. There's a million of these things. Why that isn't a factor in League of Legends esports, you should tell me, really. Because I have the whole model for you. You guys just refuse to use it. And that model, I didn't invent it. That existed for years, mate. For years and years and years. And I tell you one thing you guys are lucky for in League. You're just fucking lucky that Counter-Strike isn't a big game because Valve doesn't understand how to publish in China and Korea. Because if Counter-Strike was the biggest game, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. League would have been left in the dust, mate, because we would have had this model that just works way better for everyone. And you wouldn't even be in League, is my joke. You'd just be in Counter-Strike in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best talent just got overlooked, right? We have a Solo as our Valorant coach, and so I'm a big Counter-Strike fan. But yeah, one day we'll figure it out. But no, I agree.
So I've got one last statement to make on this whole topic. It goes like this: there's a saying that goes something like, "What you tolerate from someone teaches them how to treat you." And I think that would be the wisdom I wish could flash into the mind of every CEO of a giant LCK or LPL team. Because whenever you do a deal, there's two types of deals you can do in business. You can do a deal with someone who likes you and cares about you succeeding. And so their deal is like, I want to get a good deal for myself, but I also care that you get a good deal, and let's work together and succeed. Then there's the deal where the person just wants to win. They want to win as much as possible, even if that means you lose as much as possible, because that's how they're going to get their edge. In that type of a deal, the second one, the only chance you have against that person is if you are willing to say at some point, if it goes the wrong way, I walk away. I won't do this deal. Otherwise, if you can never walk away, you will inevitably be seen as the person who's weaker and you will lose in the negotiation terms. You will never win out on that deal because they know you can't leave. So I'm not joking when I said earlier on, I think it is nuts that you guys, T1, just get treated like you are DN Supers. You get treated like you are the randomest team in the LCK. You get treated like fakers at winning worlds.
Random team, by the way. Like they.
Whatever, mate. We'll tell you what. You hook up with them and do a homestand there. Have a great time with it.
I bet we could sell a lot of tickets, actually.
I'll make you a prediction, mate. Tell you what. I'll make you a promise.
Let's go focus on the right things here, right?
Yeah, I'll just tell you something quickly. Today's the 1st of February, 2026. I'll message you on the 1st of February, 2031, and I will just message you and go, lol, how do you like them apples?
Well, I don't understand what this argument's even about, because what I'm telling you is that as a team, we are diversifying away from Riot so that we are less and less dependent, right? Like League is 25.
And you love Riot anyway, right? And they're doing all these great things, so no problem. Like I said, we could scrap the episode.
No, I mean, it's like we find our own way to survive that doesn't depend on Riot. Like that is our business decision that we've decided to adopt, because we've tried to change the things that would benefit us with the League. And we said, you know what? They have other priorities that they're going to prioritize.
I've got a real question. I'm not being facetious when I ask this question. You say that, but I actually don't think you are doing that very well, mate. And here's why. I could believe if T1 told me they're diversifying away from League, they've K-popified their whole fan base and their team. I've heard, I might be wrong, this is the rumor. The rumor I've heard is you specifically tell people like Chovy, you don't have to do tons and tons of media. I won't do that. I just want you to be the best mid laner and I want you to win worlds. If you want to diversify away from Riot, mate, forget fucking winning worlds. You're not doing it anyway. And it's really hard. One team wins worlds. You'd be better off taking Chovy and Keen and by the way, massive personalities, awesome players. You should sell them as brands. You should build up their streams. All these things have nothing to do with Riot, right?
No, all of these things are happening. That's why our sponsorship numbers are going up. Like we have a membership program. We have a lot of these things that we're doing, right? And we've diversified away from Riot. But like when I say diversify away from Riot, I'm not just talking about monetizing outside of monetizing, just the team that we do have, like those are doing really well outside of the things that Riot gives us. But I'm telling you, like the majority of revenue doesn't come from Riot titles anymore. Like completely. Like I'm telling you about complete independence, right? Like not just.
Which means what?
I'm sorry?
Can you give us an example?
Sure. So for instance, like our academy isn't dependent on any single publisher, right? Good example. Our other teams that we run with other sponsors and other titles, we have 13 esports teams in our community, 13 titles that we're participating in now, right? So like, I think that what we're doing is, if I look at a percentage of our revenue, not percentage of attention, right? I do agree that our league team is still, one of the most watched teams in our roster, right? What I'm telling you is that as a business, we've shifted away from depending on that as the answer, because I don't.
I have another question.
Yeah,
it goes like this. Actually, why would you get into Counter-Strike? Like in Counter-Strike, you can't really connect it to Korean fans. There just aren't Korean Counter-Strike fans.
I mean, that's why we're doing a lot of focus on expanding out west, including North America this year. So that's, but I agree. That's where I'm just like Counter-Strike, North America.
Yeah, it doesn't make as much sense right now.
I don't know. I don't know how to make it work in North America. And Europe is just like.
Yeah, we collectively tried that.
I wish it could, man. Do you think that other game, Deadlock, is going to work?
I think Deadlock is a complete mystery because it's in this kind of very weird liminal state between released and not released. And like, my problem with Deadlock is I do think Deadlock will be a successful game. Whether I think it's going to be a successful esport is another question due to observational issues. Whether
the game dev puts money in, all stuff like that. Yeah, the usual stuff. Yeah. By the way, I'll tell you another problem you have, and this is actually a bigger issue, is every team isn't unique. Like in the NFL, in theory, yes, you have different cities and all the rest of it, right? But a lot of the other elements are similar parameters. In fact, even some of the places I think suck in America have amazing teams that have like 80,000 people want to go to the games and stuff. Another problem you have in a game like Counter-Strike, I can tell you, is it's the same thing I said about Mongols and Paper Rex, right? Every country and every background and sponsor base isn't created equal. So for example, actually, even though I said it was Mongols, that's because Mongols have an extreme example that they're just absurdly good in the game for where they come from. If you actually looked as a region, the biggest min-max in Counter-Strike is to be a Russian Counter-Strike team, because you pay your players less, but you have giant sponsors, some of which certain Western teams probably couldn't even have, because maybe there'd be like legal concerns, or, obviously now there's all war things, so nobody even knows if you can even access some of those. So actually also, the teams you're competing against, if you're in Korea or you have a base in North America, again, it's a different playing field you're on, unfortunately. Even though you play in the same tournament, you don't have access to the same sponsorship, you don't have the same expectations. I mean, isn't another thing, we only loosely touched on it earlier. If you want to do one last league topic, I would say this. You were very, very euphemistic about it, but one of the major problems in League of Legends, I said it earlier when I said about how you and T1 have to compete over salaries and handle life, etc. One of the problems is you guys are doing bidding wars as if you were Real Madrid and Barcelona and Manchester City, or the Patriots, and well, they're not even a team that spends, the Chiefs or something like that. You're spending like you're the big dogs, but as a result, you don't have the salary caps. So unfortunately, you do what's called like a race to the bottom. As you beat each other in the bids, it makes all of you collectively pay more salary, unfortunately. And so that means there's even more pressure for Riot and other people to contribute inputs to the system, right? Unfortunately, I don't have a solution to that, because you have to have the unions. It's difficult.
I think the first thing that LCK did was the SFR that creates, actually at least a luxury tax system, right? So that created at least some sort of, not a hard ceiling, but a way to kind of manage that a little bit. The problem is like, it hasn't really evolved since then, right? Like, how do we actually like tune it so that we have the outcomes that we want? So like they created like the first step, but then hasn't been much follow-up or announcement since. And that's where I get frustrated, right? Like it's like one move in the right direction, and then we got to wait another year before another one.
Here's the problem. Believe it or not, I would like to have a polite conversation about this. But if you keep telling me, oh, Riot are really motivated and they're great guys and they want to help us, but then you also go, they just won't call. What's happening? Oh, he stood me up for a date. Eventually I have to go. Maybe your boyfriend's an arsehole. You know what I mean, mate? What do you want? What do you want? I'm not going to go, yeah, go. He sounds great. Keep going. Go back to him. He's a great guy. Like, what's stopping him, mate? What's stopping them fixing all the stuff with the salaries, etc.? What are they waiting for? Too busy making that next lock skin?
That's a good question. These new skins are getting really good. They got to go figure out how to share the skin revenue.
But what's the motivation for doing that when they can just not?
Here's the truth, right? The motivation is that they don't have to do anything and it keeps going. Right?
Exactly.
But it keeps going doesn't mean it's successful. It means it keeps going at the state that it's going at.
Yep.
Whereas other publishers are doing more and more and more. And not even thinking about other publishers.
What is an example of a publisher that is doing more that you think is trending in a positive direction right now? Like you say you have 13 teams. What are some of those other teams? Like, why are you picking up? You say, well, I can't figure out Counter-Strike in Korea and North America. Fair enough. But what are these other publishers doing? Like, you see a publisher, you're like, I have to be involved in that game as Gen G.
I think
who is
there's
that?
A couple on the horizon this year that I can't mention, but there's some big games that are expanding globally. And, I think they are going with skin revenue first. So much larger shares. I'll talk about the components of it, which is like a minimum guarantee.
Perfect. Great.
A minimum guarantee that's solid. A salary system that actually like controls spend of teams because they want fewer teams, but with better parity and create so that they know who to go to have the best competition. Much higher skin share revenue. So they basically said, here's enough for you to run a team at a high level with limited competition so that you can run it at the highest level and select the best players.
What this is effectively replacing in traditional sports is media rights, right? Yeah. This is the equivalent.
Exactly.
Like they are basically substituting a media rights deal for a microtransaction deal for you. Yes?
Yes. Because there are no media rights. I don't want to say no.
Yeah, I know. We're over that. It's not happening.
And they're basically saying, look, we're going to do 40, 50% of skin sales. And it's not just if you win a tournament, it's if, for every tournament that we run, it's going to have a skin attached to it. And like every single team will be judged based on how many fans click in the game to liking that game and liking your team, right? Not as a revenue driver, because that doesn't work, right? Shitty skins with a team logo on it don't sell, obviously. However, it's a good proxy for, are there players that are fans of the team and care about it, right? And that becomes kind of a basis to share the actual revenue that generates from the game. And there's quite a few of these that are all giving it their best shot. I don't know if any of them will be as big as the titles that we all know and love, but
we don't care about that because I think Thorin and I, from an esports perspective, the people who are OGs in the scene, we didn't get into the scene because we wanted to make the most amount of money possible. In fact, I spent the first 10 years working in esports for free, effectively, or losing money, spending my own money to run websites, traveling to events to cover them as a journalist. I wasn't making money. I was literally spending my own money to create this kind of content. And it took a long time. So that hasn't been the goal. The goal has been for us, like, how do we actually get a sustainable scene? And like the size is kind of irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be the biggest game in the world.
One thing he said earlier that is just a legal reality. This is why, unfortunately, when you get to a certain scale, you can't be an idealist like Monty. Is if you literally are a public company, you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders to increase the stock price. You don't have the option to go, I'm just going to go and give millions to these teams to run an event. You don't actually have that option. That's reality. I'm sorry. You can actually be sued.
No, they absolutely do not. Right. And so, like, to me, this is where my tension is, which is I know what I think is best for the sport. However, that doesn't align with what's best for the publisher. Oh, sorry.
Well, I think the future, but the point is that this future esports model is basically trading off of teams' popularity to drive user acquisition, right?
Yeah. And I think that's where we're going to get to. And I think that's where, I think unsustainable things don't sustain, right? And as we talked at length now, I think a lot of the things that we talked about, I think it's there's a lot of change that's going to happen. The way that it's been communicated so far, I think could have been better. But I do wish that we figure out a model where it's going to be fewer teams, but at least the revenue share should be based on how much viewership and fandom you actually contribute as a team to the sport, right? And if you just tell me the rules of that game, then we can go win, right? Like we can go try to win. But when these rules aren't set, it's really hard to operate. And so the only choice for us is to basically not make it a dependency and not depend on it anymore, and just kind of leave it alone and like hope for the best and hope for wins. But and build the
Well, and
business.
it's also just objectively bad for the fans of every game if the primary business of every esports team is not actually being a competitive team. Like everybody has to figure out different ways to do that. It's apps, it's websites, it's crypto farms. And then it's just weird. The whole thing just becomes really weird because you have to then have a bunch of people. Then the team's goals aren't even aligned. They all have different goals, right? It's not like the NFL where every team has exactly the same goals, more or less, right?
Yeah.
And this because then you just get this fucking extremely strange business world where nobody actually can win big ever, kind of.
That's kind of where a lot of teams are, I think. I think it's the teams either stay focused on esports and disappear, or they expand and they focus on other businesses, right? And we're kind of in this like weird middle state where teams are successful, they're breaking even, they're becoming sustainable, but like where's the next and who's going to lead it? And I don't think it's going to be the publishers that lead that decision, unfortunately.
And also, nobody is going to invest in this scene if there isn't a possibility of growth. If it's like the best state is break even, there's no more injection of capital.
I mean, also the other fact is the competition for eyeballs is insane right now. There's so much amazing shit that you can watch on any given day. You can watch a guy scale a tower. You can watch Logan Paul fight some 50-year-old dude. Like you can, there's just so much stuff. And I think where Riot, to their credit, innovated so much, now needs to realize that like a lot of the game itself and watching the game in the same format that we used to is like kind of stale. And so it needs to have something new and fresh injected into it, right? Whether it's offline experiences, whether it's something online, like the competition is insane now.
Yep. Are there any other topics you want to bring up from the team perspective about things you would like to see changed or other important aspects of this industry?
I think it's the biggest one that I'd love to see, I think we already covered, which is just providing a little bit more risk-taking. So the one thing I do like about LCK Cup and First Stand is that that's kind of their vehicle to try a bunch of shit. Like, who knows if Coach Voice is going to be in the game or not? Fearless ended up becoming in the game, but like,
sure,
at least there's like motion that's happening. So I think that was a great change. I just wish that it was handled a little better and that they took like a bigger risk. So what if they opened up co-streaming to everybody that wanted to co-stream those games, right? Like, I think that.
Well, then they would have to risk me, Arnold, and that they're not willing to take that risk.
But yeah, the whole reason why the whole reason why I wanted to actually even come on this show was to talk to people that even if I don't agree with everything they say, like I can like think about a world that I don't see, which is like Counter-Strike, Dota, like all these other things and different viewpoints, which I'm not going to get just sitting there in my room and talking to the same people over and over again, right? So I think what's disappointing is that like a lot of these good ideas that like I'm like, oh, I think this would work. If you just look outside of the bubble that we're in, we're like, oh shit, it is working. Systems, it's not like that innovative. Like it's So I think that's kind of the one takeaway that I have is that like, I'm glad that I was able to come on the show and at least get to talk to you guys, even if you don't agree on everything, and just listen to your ideas and try to like open up my viewpoint on like what does the rest of the esports world actually look like.
Well, I think we've said multiple times, that in all of this, the teams have been the biggest losers of esports over the last decade because the players got paid. I assume that the publishers made money off of the marketing exercises of esports. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue to invest. And they all do it independently of each other, right? So it's doing something. And the teams have been the ones struggled. Like certainly you got a bunch of VC because people thought it was going to be a massive growth industry and it was going to hit the NBA levels or whatever they thought. And that hasn't happened. But ultimately, a lot of that capital just got poured right back into the players. Yeah. So, I think, this is the critical business state of esports right now, is that the teams have to be in a healthier state. Otherwise, this entire ship just fucking sinks.
That's the point that I agree with, which is if we're in a window of stability now, right? And that was really hard fought for teams. So I know a lot of the top teams are now profitable or break even or, sustainable, let's say. Everybody has their own numbers that they have to manage, right? But we shouldn't mistake stability for success. We should view this as like a pivotal moment where we can create a future for esports that is separate from just one publisher's P&L concerns or these things like that. Like, if we miss this window, the next time another crash comes around, because crashes always come around and ad spend starts dropping and all these happen, it's not 40% of teams survive. It's like 10%. It's like, and we got to start all over again.
So we've done it before. We've risen from the apocalypse, the ashes previously.
And, I wish we were taking this more seriously as an industry. Is that like, I also catch myself because honestly, I'm a little tired. I'm a little tired of arguing about the same points. And I even catch myself saying, no, I gotta, like, if I care about this, like, I gotta go fight for the future of the sport that I love, and hopefully that it works, and try to make, it's not just like our business needs to be successful. It's like our business will only be as successful as like esports can be successful, right? And I just wish that we were doing a little bit more and realizing the urgency that we have to make changes. Versus right now, I get the feeling that because we're through the worst of like the esports crash or the esports winter, that there's like this,
I'm not sure that's true, but okay.
Yeah, that there's a sense that like we're okay now, but like winter is a season. Right. And just because
well, also, as you point out, any kind of economic downturn is going to kill ad spend, which is going to kill sponsorships. And then you think esports winter's bad now. Esports winter started because people thought there might be a crash. There wasn't.
Yeah.
What happens when it actually happens?
Exactly. And so it is right. We need to be there's the Korean story. Is it Korean? I don't know. It's like the cricket and the ant, and like you got to be like the ant and just like keep working hard and like push on the things that need to happen. So yeah, I get really worried when I see, an LC Cup game happening without more, like you said, Thorin, like when fans go and when players go, they want to be in front of a big ass place, all of their fans, and they could care less at that moment what the production value of that show is, right? Why are we optimizing for random Redditors when we should be saying these people traveled, especially in Korea, they travel like 2 hours to go to the game and waiting in line for another hour and then waiting 2 hours to go buy merch, and like you're just taking that away from them. You've taken one of the best moments that they could have in the year away from them without giving anything back, right? Like that to me is like, oh shit, are we going in the wrong direction? And I love the fact that we're doing more international competition. Like, that is amazing. We're going to go activate there. We're going to create a great fan experience. But like, well, I'm like, did this get executed the right way with the right message and the right vision? I don't know. I hope there's a little bit more that they can show, that we can like show for our fans in Korea. Because I think it's a symptom of a larger problem.
Well, I think that'll wrap up our conversation. Thank you very much. Talking about the esports monetization for teams. If you guys, we didn't even touch on this. Richard wasn't here for this episode. So unfortunate conflicts, but thanks for joining us on the show, Arnold. And as usual, until next time, esports still end to ask. We'll see you.